Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Dreaming Insomniacs, the podcast. My name is Joseph, and I'm here with the wonderful professional stuntman William R. Perry. How are you doing today, William?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to hear that, man. And I'm really happy to have you on. So let's talk about some of the films you've done. On the list, I have The Lost Boys, Predator 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 through 6, or 3, 4, and 6, correct? Home Alone
Yep.
2, Lost in New York, Hook People Under the Stairs, and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, and so many more. I just want to hear about the experience of working on those films.
It's funny when you think about being a stuntman. It sounds like it's all fun, and it sounds like it's just being a total badass, and it's not all wrong. It really is a lot of fun. The actual work itself is just as much fun as it looks like. Every now and then you do something a little dangerous, but hey, we all do dangerous stuff. We drive the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. You can get killed. So many people get killed doing that every day. Uh, getting work is the tough part. You spend a lot of time looking for work, very little time actually getting to do it most of the time. But the actual work itself, you just can't beat it. It's just, you get to work with great creative people. Um, well, at least you got pretty well paid for it at the time. And you get to go see it. Other people see your work. I mean, here we are, 30 some years later from some of these movies, and people are still talking about them. And they talk about them, with a lot of passion and with a lot of enjoyment. And they say, oh my gosh, I've seen that movie 100 times. Like, really? You've seen my work 100 times? That's pretty cool. I mean, there's not a lot of other work that other people do that gets enjoyed repeatedly like that. Music's that way, and maybe some books here and there, but nothing you've seen 100 times. So uh, it's not something I got into do on purpose. Sort of, I wanted to be in movies, but not doing stunts, and it just uh, circumstances kind of played a big hand in that. I knew some people that were stunt people, and they said, hey, you could make a real living at this. Your size, your height, your weight, boy, there's not a lot of guys look like you. And I was a martial artist and a skateboarder and some other things like that, motorcycles and stuff. And so they said, yeah, this could be a real career, and there's no auditioning anymore. You just show up. They just call you, say, come here, like, let's get to work. And you get to do fun stuff. So all
Love it.
around, look
That's
back on
awesome.
that with a lot of happiness. Very happy to have done it.
Nice, man. That's really cool. That's a serious career to have too, because you, like you said, you're putting your life on the line. But when it all
Not all the
comes to
time.
it, the magic comes together, and the films are legendary. Yeah, not
Yeah.
all the time, but so, I mean,
Yeah,
just
and
a
that's
handful. And all of the ones I mentioned are legendary films that people still talk about today. So I think that's cool.
it's true. And I did a lot of television too. I did some of the Star Trek TV series. Did the Wonder Years, which is always funny because people go, Wonder Years? There weren't any stunts on the Wonder Years. Yeah, actually, not really. No, but yeah, there were actually. When you double kids, which was my thing, the kids weren't allowed to do their own stunts. And for the most part, if they could, they wanted to keep the kids in school, and they would have an on-set school. And so if it was just something real simple and the kid didn't need to be there, and the double, meaning me, could do it, yeah, just have Bill do it. Just do that. Have him do it, and then the kid can go
Right.
back to school because the kids had to spend a certain number of hours in school in order to work a certain number of hours on set. So they always wanted to keep them in school every
That's
possible
still a
second.
thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. That's interesting though, because you wouldn't think that an adult would do stunts for kids, but really, why would they put the kids' health in danger and everything? So, I like
yeah.
that. That's cool.
About the time I got started, there was a movie called The Twilight Zone that was made by director John Landis. And in the filming of it, there was a
Mhm.
helicopter that was supposed to be hovering above the actor, and the actor was carrying this child. Well, the helicopter crashed and landed on both of them, and it killed them. and
I
it was
heard
a
about
huge,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Cursed movie,
huge,
right?
yeah, really, really bad. So after that, this happened just about the time I was getting into the industry. And so it was like, no more kids in any way, in harm's way, you know, just that just can't be done anymore. And so for somebody like me, it was like, well, like I did a stunt for a kid where he just needed to do a cartwheel. Now, most kids can do a cartwheel. He couldn't. And so they said, yeah, we just need you to come in and do a cartwheel. Like, that doesn't sound like much of a stunt, but I'm in. You
Love
get
it.
paid the same, for the
It
day.
gets the job done. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that's
somebody said,
awesome.
well, could you teach him to do a cartwheel? I said, I could, but if I do, I don't end up on camera. And that means I don't get residuals. So no, I can't teach him
Right.
anything.
Yeah, and at the time, kids really didn't get residuals either, right?
No, kids actually get they're treated just like adults. And stuntmen are
Oh, they
treated
are?
just like
That's good.
the actors. Yeah. Yeah. It's all pretty much the
Good.
same. The
Good, because
problem
I feel
was,
like stuntmen don't get enough love. That's why I'm happy to have you here, man.
and I appreciate that, but the kids do get the same money. I mean, when we did the Wonder Years, uh, Fred Savage was one of the highest paid people in Hollywood. Um, and Macaulay
That's awesome.
Culkin in Home Alone 2 was definitely one of the highest paid stars. The unfortunate problem was his parents were still his guardians, and word is that
Yeah,
they ran through his
I
money.
know all about them. Yeah, they suck.
Yeah,
Hmm.
not good stuff.
Bad
So
people.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's happened with a number of
yeah.
child actors,
Poor Macaulay.
and Corey Feldman
Did you get to
also.
meet him when you worked with him?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice kid, very quiet.
Was he nice? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Most of the kids, I mean,
cool.
I would say without exception, the kids that I worked with were cool. Some of them I call them kids. I talk about Ira Hayden, who I worked on Nightmare on Elm Street and Elvira with. I say, oh yeah, he was a great kid. I got to see him about a year ago. I just happened to be at a convention and I saw him. He's only 4 years younger than me. So I've been calling him a kid. I'm like, he's, he's not a kid.
Yeah.
He's he's gonna,
I got a friend who calls me his little brother, and he's 2 years younger than me. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I
I
was,
feel that, man.
and I see, a lot of these kids, they were kids when I was doubling them. If they were under 18, that's technically, a minor. And so like the
Oh yeah,
Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, um, the kids that were on Nightmare on
rest
Elm
in peace.
Street, they were all usually 18 or just under 18. They really like to hire people that are 18 that can play younger, because that way they can work them the whole day. They don't
Right.
have to be in school. They don't have the same concerns about whether, like if you think about it, if a kid's doing a show, if he gets a little bruise on his face or a cut or something, they have to wait till that heals or until they can cover it with makeup effectively. So for the most
Right.
part, if there was any chance of any even minor injury that might just, make it harder to film, why bother? For $1,000, you bring in a stunt guy and, he does it. And then if he gets mangled,
Right.
that's just what it is, you kind of expect, like, yeah, he's
Yeah, and
expendable.
it's within the budget too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
You think
cheaper in the long run and
you think
safer too.
they'd choose me to play a high schooler? Because
Oh
I'm
yeah,
26,
yeah.
but I look like I'm about 18. I could pass for a high schooler in like a movie or a TV show if I wanted to.
Yeah, I think the very first film I did was a movie called Christine. And I think I was 26, and I looked enough like a high school student that they used me throughout the film in all sorts of different places. And they were like, wait,
Love
how
that
old are
movie.
you? I'm like, I'm, 26. And they're like, really? Do you want to work? And I'm like, of course, and it was my very first, I was doing extras at the time, which is very different than stunts or that sort of thing. But it was great because I would walk into places and they're like, oh, only, it's 18 and over here. I'm like, 26. They're like, no shit. No shit. So then I
Did
got
you
a lot
meet
more.
Lee Waddell there?
No, Lee and I have been friends since we were 7 years old. So we've been we did
Oh,
that
you
movie.
you knew each other before that.
Yeah, yeah. We were friends from little kids. I think first day of first grade
Oh,
is
that's
when
so
we met.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. He's been friends a long time. He
Lifelong
actually
best
got me
friends.
in. Yeah. When we were coming up,
That's awesome.
I wanted to be an actor exclusively. He wanted to do stunts or possibly go into the military. And uh, a friend of a friend, a guy named Tony Caesar, who was Wes Craven's stunt coordinator for most of his career, had said, "I'm looking for this kid, Lee. I need a kid that's about, this tall, brown hair, brown eyes." And he's like, "I know the guy." And so he called me in and he said, "Hey, Tony will give you a job doing a stunt." And I was like, "I'm not really a stunt man." And he's like, "It's really simple. You're just going to be a passenger in a car." I said, "Am I getting run over or something?" And he said, "No, you're just the passenger. They don't want the car is going to be careening through the Los Angeles River, and the chances of anything happening are very low." It was a Disney TV show at the time. Wes did a lot of television that most people don't know about. And anyway, so he did this show, and so he said, the stunt coordinator looked at me and said, "Wow, you really look little and young." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "There's a lot of work for little guys right now. Every film out there is a slasher film." Tony had done Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, and he did pretty much everything else that Wes did. And he said, "They're always cutting up teenagers, and you look like a teenager." He goes, "You don't have the big arms, that most of the stuntmen have that are ex-gymnasts." He said, "You got little girly arms," which didn't sound like a compliment, but it turned out to be a really good thing.
Yeah, it worked out in that situation.
Yeah.
I definitely want to hear more about the how you guys formed the website for Wes. I knew you were telling me before that you ran the
Yeah.
website. But
Yeah.
first, I do want to talk about a little bit about Dream Warriors because that's my favorite nightmare movie.
It always is. Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, welcome to prime time, bitch. I love it.
If that line doesn't work for you, what line will? And the funny thing about
Yeah,
that
right.
is when we were making it, it was kind of the last of the practical effect horror films. Most everything you see, with a
Yeah.
handful of small exceptions, um, was done with real makeup and with stunts. There wasn't a lot of CGI. There was times where they might have used a green screen a little bit here and there to, like, there's a kid that's hanging over a pit of hell, I guess, and you look over, you look down, and it looks like he's, there's lava or whatever it is, and that's about one of the only real kind of CGI-ish effects that they did. But like the girl that has the needles, and looks like little mouths,
Hmm.
because she's an addict, and that wheelchair really did come after me. That thing weighed a couple 100 pounds, and they pulled it with a Volkswagen, or at least a Volkswagen motor, and so it's basically attached to a cable. And they said, "Run." If that hits me, that's going to hurt. They said, "Oh
That's
yeah,
so
I'll kill
cool.
you." And so a lot of the stunts in there were
That's
really
so cool.
fun, and I think it's why it's one of everybody's favorite films, because um, because it was practical, because it was real, because the special effects were very personal. The performances were a lot more personal, and I think it's, we all have nightmares, and sometimes nightmares have a sort of mixture of real and freaky weird, to it, and that movie really has that. And so
Yeah, it
it's
does.
it really, I think after that, that was like the biggest budget one they did too. I think 3 had something like a $15 million budget, which is considered a low budget nowadays.
Oh,
Most of them were like 3 to 5
yeah, but
million.
15 million in 1980. What year did it come out? It was in the
I
80s.
think
I
it was
know that.
85 or 86. Yeah. So that was a pretty huge
Right,
budget,
so that
especially
much
for,
money then would be so much more now.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
now 18 million, a low budget film now is like 15, 20 million, where a big budget film is
Right.
150, $250 million and more. Um, so yeah, it's
And then it makes
scaled.
a billion. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't go into a lot of the whole, strike talk, but I will tell you at the time when they made those, you would get residuals for the film when it came out. Once it, after it made its film debut, where it was actually shown in theaters, every other venue you got a piece of it, a piece of the profits. So if it went to pay TV, which I don't know if anybody even knows what that means anymore, kind of like cable. They had like think of it as being like on demand or DVDs or VHS or any of these other venues. They would say, okay, it made another $10 million. Give the actors a piece. And so, as an actor or a stuntman, you could make a living because you got a
Right.
portion of the profits. And now there's so many streaming services. That's where all the money is. And yet, you can have a movie shown 50 times on pay-per-view or not pay or on say Hulu or something like that, and you might get a couple of dollars. So
Yeah,
it's
it's like
very
that with
hard to make a
music
living
too,
out of
though.
that.
Streaming
Yeah,
on
streaming
Spotify,
and
you make
yeah,
a millicent per play or
yeah,
something like that. It's crazy. That's why I took my stuff down. I'm tired of getting ripped off. It's all on YouTube. They can listen to it for free at this point. I don't care.
yeah. You know what? And that's where you get to. It's like I'd rather they watched it for free than be insulted at these little tiny things. But now, you've got all the different streaming services. Now you've got Peacock and you've got Hulu and they've got it where now everybody, I mean, it used to be you had cable and you paid $50 a month for it and you thought it was a ripoff, but what else are you going to do? Now you have cable and you have Hulu and you have
Yeah.
Paramount Network and you got Netflix and you got Amazon
Disney
movies.
Plus
Yeah, Disney. Thank you. So now
and
you're in at
Max.
$100,
Can't forget about Max.
not Max. Yeah, and
Yeah.
now you're probably paying $100 a month for all your streaming services if you can afford it all.
Yeah.
And yet the actors and stunt people
Right.
get even less than they did back then.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So
and
it's
then I heard something about SAG people. They are like 80% of SAG actors do not qualify for SAG health insurance. That's not fair.
oh no, that's not true. 95% do not.
Okay.
Your numbers are way low.
That's even
Yeah,
worse.
it's way worse. Yeah,
That's even
yeah,
worse. Oh my God. Oh, they
95%.
need to do
In
something
fact,
about that. They need health
I
insurance.
I think 97% of screen actors will never make enough. Oh, did I lose you? If you're out there in the audience, I've lost my host. I'm assuming he'll be back shortly. So I'll finish that story for your benefit. So most actors never make enough to make a real living or get enough to make insurance. And so they end up working they work in restaurants, they work wherever they work, trying to make ends meet. And a very small number of actors actually make enough to make it a career. And that's tough. Musicians kind of have it the same way as we were talking about earlier. My son's a professional musician and it's a tough life. You're so good at this stuff. You spend so many hours working and struggling and trying to be the best. And yet people don't want to pay for it, or the big corporations want to sell your work, but they want to pay you very little for doing it. So, I don't know what anybody else wants to talk about. I don't know if I can see the chat here. See what maybe anybody watching might want to know. Put the old man glasses on, see if I can read that. Hey, Corey, you're out there somewhere. Corey Crow Cinema. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Thank you for taking the time. Hey,
I
you're
am
back.
so sorry. I am so sorry.
It's totally okay. I actually just kept going. I saw
Thank
that
you.
you were off, so I just told the audience, I'm going to answer that question in full. Why not?
I keep getting phone calls, man. People call me at the worst times.
That's hilarious. I was actually worried that my internet wasn't going to be fast enough. I was recording a podcast the other day, and all of a sudden, I was stopping. I could hear myself, but my screen was basically frozen. So it
Yeah,
looks like we have
right.
some people in the chat.
Finally, yes. We
What
got
do
some
we got
questions
going?
too.
Brandon, what was the most interesting practical effect that had to be built? Oh, that's a perfect question. There was, if you watch Nightmare on Elm Street 3, there is a big Freddy snake. Now, that snake, when it was brought out, we all started giggling. And it's giggle, giggle, giggle. The whole place is just erupting in laughter. The director's like, what? What is so effing funny? But he didn't say effing. And it was because somebody said, it looks like a dick. And it does.
It does
Look
look
like
like a
a dick.
dick. You're right.
So, he gets kind of irritated, but there's a scene where it starts chomping up Patricia Arquette. Yes,
Yeah.
Patricia.
Yeah.
And so the way they did that, because it couldn't actually do this, is they put her all the way in it, and then it would chomp backward and sort of release her, and she would scream progressively less, I guess, or progressively more, so that it looked like it was getting her. And do we have to be child friendly in this podcast?
No.
Oh, good, because everybody's giggling again, and you can hear the joke, and it's going around, and it's going around the whole set. And finally, the director once again says, "All right, what's the joke? What's the joke?" And somebody says, "Well, it's the first time I saw a penis eat a girl to get into a movie." Usually.
That's funny.
That's pretty
funny.
brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as a practical effect, I have to say it was one of those things where I the more I looked at it, it's like, oh, come on. Who didn't look at that and go, well, that's obviously a dick?
Me at
I mean,
14 when I first saw the movie, but now that you say it, I can't
watch
unsee
it
it.
again. You'll
Yeah,
be,
it's
you'll
just a
have dick
giant
on the
dick.
brain, as it
Yeah,
were, forever.
dick on
Yeah.
the
So to speak. I'd like to, look, can I take that back? No.
No.
So,
No, you
yeah,
can't.
that was one of the more interesting, hilarious special effect things where it was just funny. There was just no way around it. And yeah, when people see it now, I don't know. I don't know if other people pick that up immediately. I couldn't see around it. So,
That's funny.
thank you for that, Brandon. That's a pretty horrible
That was a great
story
question.
in a good way.
Yeah,
What
right.
else? What else?
I'm
we
actually
got?
kind of glad I got that call because now I don't see a lag with your mouth. I don't know if the audience did before, but I did. So
Okay.
it's easier to communicate now.
Yeah.
Did you answer this question from Carrie at all?
The question was, what's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie? I'd have to say 3. It's just hard to be. That was my first one of them. It was the most elaborate one. And as a stunt goes, it's the one, it's the wheelchair scene, the wheelchair's chasing the kid. And it's when you do a film, you always want to be that guy that got to do that iconic stunt that everybody's going to remember. And since it's Will's death, it's kind of one of those. And people, like, when you tell people, they say, well, what did you on Nightmare on Elm Street 3? I'd say, when the wheelchair is trying to get the kid, they're like, no way, that was you. And all of a sudden you have a place in their heart. Now they go, oh, that was one of my favorite, and I love the kid with the marionette things, and the girl with the needles. It's one of them,
Yeah,
in
that whole
Nightmare.
movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show. And then Nightmare 4, there was a martial arts scene, and I said I was a martial artist. So Andrus Jones, the character of Rick, is doing his workout. And my brother Larry is a 9th degree black belt. Total
Okay.
badass, was my instructor for many years. And he saw the movie and he said, so that was you in the karate scene? I said, yeah. And he says, did you tell people that I was your instructor? And I said, no. He goes, thank you for that. So he didn't approve of my skills that much. He thought I looked pretty lame. And going back and looking at it,
Oh, he
I
thought
don't
you made him
know.
look bad.
Yeah, well, he thinks he made it look bad, but my brother's also kind of a dick. So what can you do?
Nah.
But in the end, that's another one where I love watching it. I love the song that's with it. There's a song that goes with it. And then in Nightmare 6, I'm in the opening sequence, which is almost thrown away a little bit, where Freddy's got the kid in, he's having a nightmare that he's in a cyclone, like Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz, and he
Yeah.
flies by and I'll get you, my pretty, and all that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And so at the end of that, the house lands hard in the middle of Elm Street. And the kid falls out the window, which he's standing close to for some reason. And the stunt was you see him fall through the screen, and he lands on the ground, and he rolls out, and he gets up, and then he runs straight to Freddy's house. So it was about 30 degrees that night. It's never that cold in LA, but it was that night. And so it's very, very cold. And I look at the kid, and he's wearing the tightest little t-shirt you'd ever want to wear and skinny jeans. And I'm like, where am I going to put my pads? I'm going to be doing dive rolls on the concrete from a 7-foot ladder. And they said, well, maybe you can put on some pads, as long as they don't show on the butt. They're not going to see your butt. You're going to be falling through screen pretty fast. And so I'm jumping off this ladder, and I'm landing on asphalt. And I roll out of the way, and then the actor stands up, and he runs to the Freddy's house, and the camera follows him. Well, we do the stunt, and they're like, oh, it's not your fault, Bill. Not your fault. We got to go again. Ouch, man. That really hurt. Okay, so we'll do it again. Still didn't get what they wanted. Still didn't get 4 or 5 times. I'm getting beat by this time. I'm trying not to land on my shoulder anymore because it's just all but dislocated at this point. And the stunt coordinator looks at me, and he's like, you all right? I said, I can do another one. And so he turns to the director and says, yeah, no more unless you're willing to pay for it. And he goes, well, how much does he want? And he says, $500 a fall. And the director's like, oh, I don't have that kind of a budget. And he's like, can't ask him to do this anymore. It's not his fault that you're not getting the shot. And so I think we did it something like 11 times. And so I got home the next day. I am so bruised. I'm just black from my shoulder down to my ribs. My wife looks at me and she said, oh my God. I said, yeah. And she's like, this isn't right, honey. You gotta call somebody. I'm like, honey, this is what the deal is. This is the job. And she's like, well, it's wrong. And I said, I made $5,000 last night. She goes, oh, okay.
Yeah,
my welfare meant nothing ever
for that one night. Yeah.
My welfare never meant another thing again. So it was really, it was fun. It was, did some pretty decent damage. But yeah, it was one of those things. If you were a professional football player and you came home from a game and you had bruises and, cracked ribs or whatever, you'd say, well, dude, you're a professional football player. Suck it up. That's kind of the same way with stunts. There's a certain level of abuse that's just kind of comes with the territory. You shouldn't have broken bones. It's supposed to look like it hurt. It's not actually supposed to, break your bones. But you're there to take that abuse so that the actor doesn't have to. So certain amount of abuse is just kind of like, what you think you were getting into?
Right. Yeah. I could never be a stuntman though, because I failed to tuck and roll out of a car once, and I have a fractured spine because of it. So
that I've got a lot of issues I deal with now at my age that might not have been so bad if I hadn't gotten myself beat up so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, at least you did it though, man. Like seriously, you have a repertoire here of work. That's serious.
Yeah, very, very fortunate. When I look back on it at the time, you didn't imagine that horror films were going to be they wouldn't stand the test of time. You'd say, like a buddy of mine, a guy named Alan Robinson, another guy you should talk to. Alan Robinson was Tom Hanks's double for years and years. And so he did these epic, great films. Films that you go, man, that movie, that touched my heart, man. But horror films get you in the cons, conventions and stuff. They're like, oh, we want to talk to you about your horror films. And he was Ghostface as well. Lee did Ghostface as the original Ghostface. Alan was in Scream 2 and did most of the kills in Scream 2. So when people ask him about movies, they always want to talk about, Scream and Scream 2. When people talk to me, they want to talk about Nightmare and Predator and that sort of stuff. Um, and you might have done films that you thought were more art, like really that was like a really moving Oscar-winning kind of film. But the ones people seem to talk about 30 years later are the horror films and the kind of low budget, shoestring budget kind of films where I think the creativity had to be higher because the budgets weren't that high.
Yeah,
Didn't have like Johnny Depp started in Nightmare on Elm Street.
I know that was his first movie.
And yeah, and Patricia Arquette
Yep.
went on to Oscar, stuff.
And then her brother was in all 5
David
Scream movies
yeah,
before
David
6.
Arquette. Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of these people started in kind of low budget Wes Craven films, but obviously he picked good people
Yes, he
and
did.
cast well. But that's how they made their mark in these films, and then went on to do more elaborate.
Even the cast of Scream 4 are off doing things still.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
really, those films are really a springboard because they have a
Yeah,
built-in audience, and a
do.
very passionate built-in audience. If somebody
Right
loves you
here.
in these films, they love you forever. I mean,
Right.
I'm sort of,
And if I don't, I don't. I'm sorry.
yeah. If you sucked, you sucked. That's all there is to it. But
It's not that the person in the new ones suck. I just have a really controversial opinion regarding her attitude. I think you
yeah,
know who I'm talking about.
yeah,
Just not a
I do.
fan. I'm sorry. I'm over it.
No, it's all right. And the thing is, that's true. Really, for me, when Wes made Scream, he showed me the script, and I said, "You'll never get this made." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "No way, it's too violent." And he goes, "No, it's funny." I said, "You have a really screwed up sense of humor, mister. That is not funny. It's not gonna be funny, and people will think that this is such a gruesome film, you'll never get it made."
You're also
And he goes,
talking about Wes More Blood Craven.
yes, yes. I remember we were doing one of the movies, and this woman walks through, and she literally has 2 half-gallon pitchers of blood. And I looked over and said, "Oh, we're going to be getting an Oscar for this movie. I can tell now." I mean, it was just and it got to be, excess it was always trying to up it to the next level.
I love it.
But when Wes made Scream, it was breaking the mold of horror films that he found boring. He found some, Wes did Nightmare, and then he didn't really do Nightmare 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. He gets a writer's credit because he wrote most of these characters. And
wasn't he executive on 3?
Yeah, which means we really want to use your name. Is that okay if we use your name?
Oh, that's it?
We give you a bunch of money.
He really wasn't there.
Name, yeah. And he was a script consultant. They asked him, they would talk to him about it, but he wasn't super involved for the most part.
He also came up with Freddy Krueger. I think you forget that. It was about people that had dreams that they didn't want to go to sleep and then they ended up dying, these teenagers. It's a true fucking story. How cool is that?
Yeah, I have as we talked about earlier, I was Wes's web developer, and he gave me some interviews. When I was doing the site, I would call him up and say, "Hey, Wes, what's going on?" And he would tell me, and then I would write as if I was Wes on his website. So I would retell whatever was going on. But as part of that, he would give me these interviews whenever he did a radio interview or a television interview, and he'd give me these tapes, and he talks in depth of where the hat came from, where the sweater came from, why the claw, why knives on the hand. And he goes into all that. And it's funny because he was such an intelligent guy. He just recognized that all the things that scare you when you're a little kid still scare you when you're an adult. Because you've learned to deal with it. You're not worried about the monster being under the bed from an intellectual level, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you're gonna look under that bed when you go into a hotel room, and you're like, I'm just gonna take a quick look in the bathroom, make sure nobody's in there. You have the same fears. You've just learned to be rational about it. So what Wes loved to do was take that fear that you still have and make it real again. Because the thing is, you're afraid of knives. You're afraid of clawed things like, a bear tiger or whatever. You're,
Right.
you don't want to get clawed up by something. That's a very primal thing. You
But
think
this guy can get you in your dreams.
he can make, and he can make what is unreal real.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, he
and,
can.
and he can chase you in a place where you are defenseless,
Yep.
So,
And we've all had those dreams where we're choking, drowning, falling. It's just like that. You're trapped in that forever loop. And Freddy can take that to his advantage and fuck with it. It's great.
I
Genius idea.
wrote a horror book back in November, which got published recently, and it was based on a nightmare that I had, and it was the most frightening dream I've ever had. And I tried to tell it to my wife, and she's like, no, don't tell me anymore.
Yep.
Don't want to know any of this. So I called a publisher that I knew, and I told him the story, and he said, that is the most frightening thing I think I've ever heard. And I
It's
said,
funny
really?
you say that.
And he
It's
said,
really funny you say that.
yeah. He says, well, do you want to write it? And I said, I'm not a writer. And he's like, well, I'll write it. I said, okay, give it a try. And
there we go.
After about a month, he hadn't written anything. And I said, you know what? I remember that dream so vividly. I think I can write it.
It was that effective on you.
Yeah, really, really. I mean, so emotional, very, very sad, dreadfully sad. And so when I wrote it, he looked at me and he said, what draft is this? And I said, was I supposed to do drafts? He goes, this is the first thing you've ever written? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, do you want to publish it? I said, yeah. Okay. So he's like, I'll publish it. I'll put it out. And so as of February, it was out on the bookshelves, and it's doing okay.
Congrats.
But it was all based on the most frightening thing. And I told my wife just enough about it. And she said, do you want to know where this comes from, psychologically? Because my wife's a psychologist. And I said, yeah, what do you think? And she kind of explained to me that this was a fear of death that I have, and a fear of dementia or Alzheimer's. And she said, does that help? And I said, it really helps, because now I know where it goes. Because now that I can take the scenario that my brain is trying to work out in this dream and work it and say, okay, if that's how bad it could be in the dream, it could get much, much worse. And
that's a fear, though, for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
That's a really, really, really deep-rooted fear that most people don't want to address. So,
well, and it manifests itself, without giving too much about the book, but it manifests itself in that I end up killing people, but I'm not in control of myself. I can't stop it. I can feel it. I can see it. I can smell it. Everything is very real, but I'm killing the people around me that I care about the most.
Oh, in your dream.
In a dream. Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He doesn't, he's not dreaming.
What?
Yeah, he's not dreaming. This is all real. And he's really
in the book. So you changed it a little bit for the book, right?
In the dream, again, it was all real. And when I woke up, I was like, holy crap. And so when I started writing it out, basically I use a lot of things that are actually true in my life. It's my real children. It's my real wife. It's my real friends. And so when it was all said and done, it, like I said, it was this, because the fear, as my wife described it, is you're afraid of becoming someone you don't know and hurting the people you care about most, because that's kind of what.
Oh, she broke down what happened in the dream, used her psychology thing to, explain it to you. That's so cool.
Make it and escalate it. How much worse would it be?
Yeah.
And we talked about Lee earlier. I told Lee said, well, what's the follow-up? Where's the book 2? And I said, dude, there is no book 2. Have you read it? And he goes, yeah, but what if? I'm like, son of a bitch, that's a good idea.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe you're going to have another dream for the sequel.
I didn't want to write it anymore, but now it's such a great idea. I haven't written it yet completely, but I know what I'm going to write. And it's kind of what Wes did. Wes took, he tells the story of when the Freddy Krueger character, he was in his room, and he looked out the window, and there was this very scary man in a fedora. And he was looking out the window, and the guy was just staring at him. Just, total eyes on. And he was like, he closed the window, and he's all scared. And about an hour later, he opens up the window, and he's still there, and he's still looking in the window. And he was like, ah. And then
how old was he?
He was maybe 10 or 11.
Oh, it was definitely a creep.
Yeah. And the guy starts walking, and as far as Wes could tell, he entered the building.
What?
And Wes was like, ah, and he calls his parents, and they checked it out. There was nobody there. But he said
That's
that
scary.
that mysterious stranger, with the fedora, was definitely, the visual. He said the stripes on the
Mm.
shirt, the red and the green. It's something where you watch these movies more than once, and you'll notice this. But Freddy's a block away, but you see that red green combination, and that's him. So if it's the nurse, if it's this, it's that. Anytime you saw that red green, oh shit, that's Freddy.
Yeah.
He may be disguised, but he's going to become Freddy, and he's
Yeah.
obviously very close by, and
It's
he's going
weird.
to be
Nobody ever correlates him to Christmas, though.
no. And if you watch the first Scream, there's a janitor named Freddy
Yep.
that Principal Himbry talks to just before he gets done in, and it's Wes
I know it
wearing
is. I love that.
wearing
It's
the
a great
sweater, and
cameo.
yeah, very fun little cameo,
Yeah.
little Alfred Hitchcock cameo-esque thing there. But that red and green, the minute you see
He's
it,
in all of them, I think. They cut it out of
yeah,
4, but he's in all of
somewhere,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere. But the
Yep.
the funny thing about all that too is when Wes finished Scream 3, one of the interviews I have him, he said, "That's it. There will never, I guarantee you, mark my words, there will never be another Scream after
Money.
3." And then he made number 4
Money.
because
That was his last movie, though. It was better than My Soul to Take. I'll give him that.
well, yeah, it was his last scary. The other thing
Yeah.
he did a movie called Music of the Heart, where he
Yeah.
worked with Meryl Streep.
I know. I heard about that. Was really
Yeah,
cool too.
total
Yeah.
non-genre, no horror stuff. And when I was working with him about that
Red Eye
time,
also was really good.
yeah, and he was doing those as a means of just not wanting to feel like he'll only ever be known as a horror film director, because it's like, yeah, horror films, yeah, they're not hard. It's like, no, horror films are hard, and it
Yeah.
takes real directing skill. And they're like, yeah, show me your skill, do a real movie. And so he was aching to do a real movie when Scream came along, and he was like, oh God, this is good. This is so good. This tears that whole paradigm up of, these movies are very formulaic after a while. It's kind of, and Scream plays with that. Yeah, you're going to get killed if you had sex. You're going to get killed if
Right.
you say, I'll be right back. You're going to get killed,
Yeah, you're killed if you're in the opening, unless you scream 5.
and you run upstairs when you should be running out the front door.
Right.
So all of those tropes and all those cliches are sort of they're understood in Scream.
Yeah.
And so
Why I
and
love
Scream
it.
2. And so Wes was like, he didn't write Scream, but he was aching for that film, and then somebody brought it to him. And
He was
so
also heavily involved in the writing of 3. I know that with Aaron Kruger.
yeah.
Which
And
was my first horror movie, and I was 6
uh,
when I saw that, and it scared the shit out of me. I couldn't go
it
to
should have.
Ghostface for
Yeah.
years. Yeah, I begged my sister. She said no like 4 times, and then I was like, please, and eventually it just annoyed her to a point where I was like, all right, fuck it, we're just gonna watch it, and you're gonna regret this for years, and I did. And then when I
My
was 14, I chose to love it, and I watched the movies, and I became like too obsessed that I let it go for a bunch of years. And, well,
yeah,
now this stuff's happening.
my son's mom let him watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original,
Oof.
when
Yeah, okay.
he was like 8. I'm like, what is
Bit too
wrong with
young.
you? You're gonna call Child Protective Services on his. She's like, oh, I watched these movies when I was a kid. I'm like,
I'd
yeah,
even say the original Halloween is okay. That's a little more
yeah.
tame.
Like to me, I'll tell you, the one that messed me up. I was in high school. Was Friday the 13th, the original
Which
one.
one? Oh, the original with
The
Pamela
original.
Voorhees. Yeah.
Kevin Bacon.
Yep. Kevin Bacon's
guy,
first movie.
first major film.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene where he's in bed, the hand comes up from under the bed,
Oh,
grabs
and
him
the
by
arrow
the
in the throat. Yeah. Oh.
I will
Hurts to
remember
look
that.
at.
I mean, it's indelibly imprinted on my psyche and psychosis forever. And that's what these movies can do, though. No other kind of movie has that impact on you. And I think that's why people enjoy them over and over. It's that first shock of, and Wes was really eloquent. he had said one time that people watch horror films not to watch people get killed, but to watch people survive. Because not everybody has a great life. And you go
No.
through life and you just don't know sometimes if you're going to be able to survive this shit.
I feel that every day, man, but we make it through, right?
Every day, right? And so you watch this movie and there's this girl and she's not particularly strong and she's not particularly, there's lots of people that get killed in the film, but she doesn't. And it's because she's just got that survival instinct and she will find a way to live when nobody else did. She isn't going to get surprised. She isn't going to get, taken advantage of. And he said, when we watch these movies, we are living through that person. And when the movie's over, you go, hey, man, if she can make it, maybe me too. And he says, you don't say it consciously, but that's that feeling in your psyche is, God, that was crazy. There's even that term, the final girl. It's like you identify with this person and you want to see them survive, but you do want to see them suffer through some mayhem first.
That's very true. I will say, though, older movies did that better. Newer movies are really failing at making relatable characters that aren't pandering to some sort of agenda. I'm sick of it.
And it's if you don't care about the character, it doesn't matter if they get killed.
Exactly.
Even a bad guy needs, like it used to be the trope was, well, this guy's a dick, so obviously he's going to die. Because as a director, you don't want to kill off someone everybody likes.
Right.
Well, that was a trope. That was that was a cliche. And so here's Drew Barrymore opening Scream. She's lovely. She didn't do anything wrong. She's not a bad person.
She's just going to watch Halloween.
And she's going to watch the Wes Carpenter movie.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And she gets it. What the hell? Why is that a thing? No, that's not how. This is not how movies work. And
her boyfriend too.
No, that's how real
life works.
Yeah, some of the bad guys end up surviving.
Right.
What the hell is that? Bad guy is supposed to be punished in the end. And that's why when they become formulaic, they're no fun for me anymore because I see it coming. It's like knowing the punchline to a joke, and somebody's trying to tell it, and you're like, I know the joke, and they're like, no, let me tell you. It's like, I know the joke.
Don't explain.
There's no payoff here.
If you have to explain it.
Yeah, or if I already know the punchline, it's not going to be funny the second time.
Right.
And so
I will say too, like Scream 6, you just pointed out all my issues with Scream 6. It starts with something different, right? You do get that, like you think the bad guy's going to get away. And then they just pull it out from under the rug again. And then you get to the end of the movie. It's doing the same trope, cliche bullshit. You got the cops throwing the gun at Samantha while she's running at him with a knife. No, he didn't even throw the gun. He's running at her with a loaded gun. Does not shoot her. And she has a knife in her hand and she's running at him. And then they fucking run into each other, fall off a balcony. It cuts to black. And then you get your ending when she stabs him like 45 times or whatever. It's so dumb.
Which is necessary.
It's so bad. This Wes is rolling over in his grave. I guarantee you. That was disgusting. 5 was a great honor. That one, no. Sorry. Yeah. Scream 6 pissed me off.
And I've heard both sides. I hear people who say, I really liked it because it was brutal.
Yeah, Ghostface was awesome in it.
Yeah, it was a lot more intense that way. Which brings the scare back where sometimes, blood packs, lots of spurting, eyeballs,
heads cut off in this new one too. There was a head cut off too.
Yeah.
Something different. A little bit of decapitation.
Yeah, and guns and things like that too. And
shotgun,
yeah, and I get it. They're trying to, and Scream 7's already, in production, although they're stopped again. But
there's an issue that it's one of the writers. It's that Vanderbilt guy. He wrote those amazing Spider-Man movies. Terrible writer. He shouldn't be hired. Seriously, I could write better than him. He fucked up the lore.
It's funny. I used to say, well, hey man, I'm no writer, but now I can say, hey, I am a writer. So now when I watch them, I can be a dick.
I'm a writer too. I write songs.
Yeah. So so in the grand scheme of things, as I look back on those movies, there's something about them that there's the nostalgia end of it, which you talk about
Yeah.
with your, the first one you saw. I've done some movies where I look at it and go, really? That's your favorite movie? I mean, these were not Oscar winning scripts. These were not high budget, slick productions. But they're like, well, you know what? That was the first movie my dad ever took me to. It was scary. And I
Oh,
remember sitting real close to him and being scared, but not wanting to look scared because I didn't want my dad to feel like he did a bad thing by bringing me. Or I was sitting next to Susie, and Susie's so cute. And she got really scared and she snuggled up next to me, and I got a little
right.
boob action on my elbow. And oh my God, first boob ever. It was the greatest day of my life. So the movie wasn't the greatest thing that they ever saw, but it happened at a particular time in their life that meant something. And so the experience of it is heightened and more nostalgic and lovely because it was that. So when people tell me, "Oh my gosh, this was my favorite film of all time," I often will, think, "Okay, that's okay." I used to get kind of like, "Come on, man, these movies, they're kind of a formula." Even the Nightmare 3, 4, and 6. I talk about these things being formulaic, and they were.
Yeah. By the
Wes went
time
out of his
6 came
way.
around, it was funny.
Yeah, and then Wes did New Nightmare because
Mm.
he was getting tired of everybody trying to make nightmare movies. And I asked him at one point, "When do you think Freddy will die?" He said, "When he stops making money," which is a
Well,
very sad thing that you're going to keep churning out hamburger until people stop eating it.
right.
It's like
Like
there's
McDonald's.
yeah, you could do better.
Yeah.
Let's do better next time. Let's not just keep churning this out because it's a franchise.
And
Uh-oh,
they
you still
did.
there?
They did for a while. New Nightmare was significantly better than the last three. I'm not gonna lie to you. Even though you're in two of them, I'm sorry, but
No. I
that
mean,
that number six was hard to watch.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
and the thing is, though, if somebody says they enjoyed it, though, you know what they did. I'm not going to try to take that away. I mean,
Yeah.
as a songwriter, I don't know if you know who Elvis Costello is.
And
Uh,
yes, yeah, he did some shows
Elvis
with
is
Billy Joe from Green Day back in
yeah,
'06.
Elvis is like one of my favorite writers, and one of the things he talks about is I never tell people what my lyrics mean because I don't want to destroy what if they enjoy the song and I tell them the lyrics. No, Allison is about my cat. It's like,
Right.
well, that ruins it. It's like, no, 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 it is whatever you think it was. You can't go
Right.
back. So if
Yeah.
somebody enjoys it for the piece of art that it is, that's okay. It doesn't matter if they understood the lyrics. If they mean something to them and they're happy and they love it and it means, and they can enjoy it over and over, it's not my job to tell people what they should like
I
and
agree.
what they shouldn't like. If somebody says they like there's what I call torture porn kind of
Saw.
yeah, Saw and
I like the Saw
Hostel.
movies though.
Hostel,
I don't like Hostel. I like the Saw movies, but Hostel's like nope for me.
so heavy,
Yeah.
it's so intense in the graphic,
Yeah. Yeah.
cutting of
It's more graphic than Saw, if you ask me.
yeah. It's so much more torture porn than what I'm used to, and
Yeah.
I don't say that people are wrong for liking it, but if I was going to be doing a convention and they said, "Hey, we're going to be doing a little film fest, and we'd like you to come to some of the films and give us your opinions," and I was just dreading what the list was going to be because it's like,
Right.
oh, please don't show me Hostel, don't show me Human Centipede.
You know which one
No,
wasn't that bad though? Was Hatchet. Hatchet was more fun.
see, I hadn't seen that one just
Okay,
because
yeah, I
it
hadn't
looked like
until
something
recently.
I
Low
couldn't do.
budget from like '07. It's very fun. It's
Yeah,
very fun.
and I did some zombie movies, but the most graphic movie that really turned my stomach. Everybody loves the director Fulci. I can't think of his first name. Is Italian guy. Movie called Zombie,
Okay.
and it was the first time I saw one human being eat another human being in the
Oof.
most graphic detail that you could possibly have.
And it was
And
fake, obviously.
but it was like 16. I was like 16, and I
Yeah.
remember walking in, and it turned my stomach. I really felt like I was going to barf, and I thought, I don't need to watch this.
You know what movie did that for me? Believe it or not, Kevin Smith's Tusk.
I've heard of that one, but again, I haven't watched it. Just
Guy turns a guy into a walrus. The end.
I saw something about that the other day. It was like a what would you rather? Would you rather, you know, be hunted by a predator or have somebody turn you into a walrus. And I thought, what on earth are you talking about?
Both are the same, honestly. They're both as bad.
Both is,
Back to the book thing
yes.
and music thing, because it all connects. What I'm going to bring up.
Mhm.
You brought up the fact that this dream you had was the inspiration for what became this book, right?
Mhm.
So for me, our number one song as the Dreaming Insomniacs is a song called "The Puppeteer." And when I was 19, I hitchhiked all the way to Missouri from Massachusetts, and I survived somehow without getting kidnapped or trafficked or whatever. Thank God, because I was a pretty young-looking 19-year-old. But what happened was I had this nightmare about the apocalypse, right?
I got one of those too.
And Green Day had just come out with an album called Revolution Radio, where they're like one song, "Say Goodbye," was like, "Say goodbye to the ones that we love, violence on the rise." Like, I'm not really trying to sing, but it was like talking about like a really chaotic environment. And so I was having these dreams, and when I woke up one day, it came to me, a distraught sound in the distance. It calls me, the screams of hysteria and madness. It haunts me. The wise ones of the future are left behind. The aftermath you seek is not the one in mind. Rally up the loved ones, the new dawn is coming, brought to one another by the one that is hiding right quite in front of us. He is pulling the strings. How are you so blind that you could not see? Puppeteer, puppeteer, here comes the puppeteer. Then the second verse is even more deep, but I'm not going to go into all that. But yeah. So our number one song was about nightmares about the end of the world. People have their own interpretations of what it means. You know what? It means whatever they want it to, but it also means what I want it to.
Well, yeah. It's your interpretation of it is your own, and that's perfectly lovely. If somebody's like, that's not what I thought it meant. It's like, I love your interpretation too. You're certainly welcome to it. You know, if you'll pay the 99 cents to download it.
Some people
you can think anything you want.
Puppeteer is God. Some people think the puppeteer is the devil. It could be either one if you really think about it. It's pretty interesting.
It could be your own horrible inclinations.
Literally.
You know, just be the fact that we're all people that at one time or another will do something horrible if we get jealous or greedy or whatever. Yeah.
Could also just be a reminder of what to be grateful for here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not that bad. I think nightmares really they serve a place to make us grateful for our everyday lives, because things aren't as bad as we make them seem, especially with the little things that add up.
And your brain's just blowing off steam. Sometimes you got fears you just cannot deal with any other way. And so you go to sleep and your brain runs it through that, okay, let's do it. Let's run it from beginning to end. Let's get through this, because otherwise your brain's going to implode. There was a movie back in I guess probably early 90s, late 80s called Miracle Mile.
Okay.
And it's a end of the world nightmare sort of thing. Guy meets the girl of his dreams, and then he picks up a phone that just happens to be ringing, and it's some serviceman saying, Mom, they did it. They launched. Get away from Los Angeles. And he's like, who are you talking about? Mom, I can't hear you. Just get out of LA. And he realizes that Armageddon is coming. They've launched the missiles. He's got 20 minutes.
Oh, shit.
Now, I had that dream repeatedly throughout the 80s, over and over. That was my biggest fear. At the time, the president, which was Reagan at the time, had said, I believe that Armageddon will happen in my lifetime. And he says this, and he's got his finger on the button, So I'm thinking, why am I even going to finish high school? This guy's going to kill us all. Right. So we go to see this movie, and Lee was with me on one side with his girlfriend. I got my girlfriend here, and there's another couple. And they all know my dream because I'd told them about it in the past. We watch this movie, and they all turn and go, do you want to go? I'm like, why would I want to go? I've seen this every week for the last 10 years of my effing life. I know how it ends. And the movie ended just the way my dream did. It was as if someone knew that dream and just produced a film. And we watched it, and throughout the film, they would all turn and look at me like, dude, did you ever tell this dream to anybody? And it's like, not anybody that would make a movie out of it. No.
But then you went on to make iconic films. My brain's getting
Yeah.
gears going here, man. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Well, the funny thing about the movies, though, and I'll tell you this. I haven't actually mentioned this to anybody in an interview before, but people always ask, so what got you into doing horror films? Nothing gets you into doing horror films as an actor or as a stuntman or as almost anything, really. You do the film because it's the work that's available. Now, Wes Craven got into horror films because Wes wanted to make horror films. The makeup guys, they got into horror films because they wanted to do horror films.
Obviously.
But for the most part, stuntmen, hey, man, if it was, one day it's Wonder Years, next day it's Star Trek, next day it's Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't get to pick. The stunt coordinators go, you look like that guy. Come on in. You're hired today. And so when people ask, what were you a fan? What were you the biggest fan of when you were, before you started making horror films? It's like, it's two different questions. I didn't get into making horror. I didn't get into movies because I wanted to make horror films. I got into films because I wanted to get into films. And horror films happened to be what were happening at the time. And I was very fortunate, and I'm not in any way downplaying it, grateful as I could possibly be. But you didn't get to choose what films you worked on. You got to work on the films that were there. If you, like Lee, happened to look like John Malkovich, so we got to do John Malkovich movies.
I can see that.
Yeah, he looked like Ed Harris, so he got to do Ed Harris films. So the issue about what kind of films did you want to work on? I wanted to work on like Saving Private Ryan would have been the kind of film I wanted to work on. Lots of stunts, but it was very meaningful, very heartfelt film that really kind of helped you make sense of what was going on in World War II.
That's the one with Tom Hanks, right?
Tom Hanks.
I always get it confused with Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, much better film actually. But anyways,
wait, so which one's better, Pearl Harbor or Saving Private Ryan?
Saving Private Ryan. Far better direction, far better cast. Really good film.
I'll be real, I haven't seen either one.
Yeah, they're very intense.
Okay.
It's about what it's like to be in war. Whatever.
I got to be in a mood for a war film.
Yeah, but the thing that I liked about those films is, they gave you a sense, like a sense of the history through the eyes of a character that you could identify with.
Okay.
Where, and as an actor, which is what that was my primary goal as a kid, was to be an actor. I wanted to do something where somebody would look at that piece of work and go, damn, man, that just changed the way I look at the world. It's like, great. That's kind of what a great film can do. And I don't know that anybody had their world changed by Home Alone 2.
I did as a kid. I fucking love that movie, man.
But you know what I mean? They weren't soul, changing films.
That movie was way better than the first one.
I thought so too. I think they got into the mayhem a little more. It's Bugs Bunny. If you're a cartoon fan. Yeah, somebody gets hit in the head with a baseball bat and they get up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I can see why it was really entertaining for me as a kid, but if I went back and watched it now, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, it's like, it's fun. It's slapstick fun. It's Three Stooges. It's Bugs Bunny. It's a good laugh, and it's supposed to be a good laugh. And that's all.
Watch too many of them in a row, because
because then it's like,
right. It's like, what am I? Well, I can just watch something. I'm gonna go watch a horror movie now.
Yeah, it's the same joke over and over.
Yeah,
and that's where horror films get boring. When it's
you got kicked in the balls. Funny.
Yeah, and that's where horror films get to be sort of boring for me.
Yeah,
if it's the same plot over and over, and you're just doing the same thing.
Scream started to do that around 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think so too.
Lie.
But
stab kill here, stab kill there. Phone call.
If it was the first one you ever saw, though, if you were older and Scream 3 was the first one you saw,
I wouldn't have been scared at all.
It would have been surprising to you because you'd never seen it before.
That's fair. That's very true. I mean, it really affected me as a 6-year-old. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that shit was scary. I instantly had nightmares about Ghostface for like 8 years.
I have to see. I'm seeing Brandon. Somebody push another question.
Oh yeah.
Was there a trick to filming with the one take shots and Steadicam and doing stunts? Yeah, the story that I told about Nightmare 6, that was all about Steadicam difficulty. Challenges. They had a great cameraman. I'm not going to dog anybody, but it was a difficult shot. And so we had to do the stunts over and over and over. Not that our stunt had gone poorly, but that the rest of the shot racing up to Freddie's house was complicated. Difficult stuff to do sometimes. Filmmaking, the more you see it, the more you learn about it, the more you go, why would anyone even try? This is impossible, impossibly complex. And when
you had people like Stanley Kubrick who just went over and over and over again 150 times just to get a freaking take.
Yeah. And would torture his cast with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm not justifying his behavior.
We were watching Jaws the other day, and we were talking about how many things went wrong with the making of the movie Jaws, and how could this film be so impossibly good with everything in the world ruining it? You know, the shark wouldn't work, the cameras wouldn't. You know,
oh really?
There were storms that wiped out their sets and all sorts of nonsense. But Spielberg was just such a genius; he found a way to make it work anyway.
Yeah, true. I mean, Spielberg's a masterclass filmmaker. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You worked with him on Hook, so you know.
Worked with him on Hook, and that was another one of those things where you talk about dream come true kind of filmmaking. We get onto the set at Universal, and we were going to be the Lost Boys attacking the pirate ship, and you walk into this massive soundstage, just the biggest thing ever, and the set is this harbor, and stacked ships are made into apartment buildings. So they took old like pirate ships and stacked them one on top of the next, and then they looked like an apartment building. And there is Hook's ship in water, you know, not floating, but looked like it was floating, and it still had 2-3 feet of water around it, fully made up. And we climb up into the rafters, and we're swinging down on 60-foot ropes. Scariest thing you'd ever want to do. Swinging down and attacking the ship. And I just remember thinking, we're getting paid for this. This is something that when you were a 10-year-old kid and you wanted to play pirates, imagine playing with a full-size pirate ship in water.
Right.
And all the ropes. And this isn't playtime. This is badass fun. And I just remember thinking, this is everything I wanted to do when I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to do pirates. I wanted to do cowboys. I wanted to do, you know, all this fun stuff, and I get to do it. That's just who gets to do their dream job, you know, at any time in their life, much less for 10 years. You know,
great that you got to do it too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look back on it. A friend of mine died young a long time ago, and she said when I asked her, you know, are you, even because she knew she was going to pass, and I said, are you bitter that you're dying so young? You know, because we had that kind of relationship, we could talk about it. And she said, you know, your life is not really measured in length. It's measured in depth. And that's something I took with me. It's like, if I died 10 years ago, would I have had the most amazing life anyone could ever want? Oh, yeah. I mean, 10 times over. You know, I toured with Michael Jackson and all across Europe. I got to do movies. I've just had so much fun.
And were you toured with Michael?
Yeah.
There
was a stunt at the end of the concert where he would fly off with a rocket belt on his back, and buddy of mine who happens to be the guy that's the actual pilot of the rocket belt said, "I need a friend. I need somebody I can trust. Can you come to Europe?" I'm like, let me check. Yes, I can come. 3 days later, I'm on my way to England and opening up Wembley, you know, in front of 100,000 people.
People who've worked with him have, other than the people who've talked shit, we're not going to get into that, but I've only heard good things about his demeanor.
I can't say a negative thing about him. Not because when I say I can't, I don't have anything negative.
That's why I don't believe Wade Robson. Fuck you, Wade Robson.
I don't believe a lot of things.
And Bill Haverchuck, or whatever the fuck their names are. They already testified for Michael, and then they went back and made that fucking...
Well, here's the thing.
Liars.
He was an odd guy.
Funny.
No two ways about it.
It was weird, yeah.
He grew up with no childhood.
Yeah, I know.
And I think he spent the rest of his life trying somehow to
recapture it.
Yeah. And, you know, the kid that sued him was with us on tour months earlier.
And you didn't see anything.
I mean,
Exactly.
and the thing is, I mean, this is the story. Well, no, I don't want to go into it. I don't like going into negative stories. But
You
he
don't
was a
have to.
sweet guy. He did, when we were traveling across Europe, every time we would go to a city, he would find some charity and give them crap load of cash and do a quick visit and just do the nicest things. If somebody in this massive crew had a birthday, he'd rent out the local Hard Rock Cafe, the whole place for the whole night, and feed us and get us drunk. Just,
I love
he
it.
didn't, he wasn't necessarily able to show because his notoriety, but he would always do something nice for somebody. And people will say, "Oh, that's because he was hiding his guilty conscience."
No, he
I don't
wasn't.
know. You know what? All I know is he treated us as his crew like we were best friends. Always took care of us, not just in money, but in great travel arrangements, great places to stay, time off when we needed it because it was pretty grueling work from time to time. Uh, and I know just by chance, another good friend of mine was his studio tech, and would be with him for weeks on end, and said, I brought my kids to meet him and play in Neverland, and nobody ever had a complaint. He was always
He
incredibly
made a safe
gracious.
space for children. Maybe go people should go listen to Corey Feldman and the people he named. Those are the people. What did he say about Michael Jackson?
He said the only thing I saw that he ever said was,
say about Michael Jackson.
yeah, they said he treated him like a good friend
Listen
and like an
to
equal.
that.
Because he recognized those two had the same problem, where they were famous before they even were conscious.
I had my childhood taken away, so I relate to it. I think Michael was a little autistic as well, which I have mild autism, so I understand him.
His level of genius, I mean, and I'll just tell one quick story about Michael that it was one of my favorites. When I got to go to the show each night, we didn't do anything until the end of the show. So I would sit in front of the front row. They put those big steel barriers up. I'd bring a lawn chair and I would watch the show closer than the front row.
Love it.
And I would watch this man run an audience. And there, if you ever see the video, that's on YouTube or it's on HBO. It's the concert from Romania, from Bucharest. Okay. And at the beginning of the show, the lights are coming up and there is this rumble. And we had stacks like you have never seen in your life as far as speakers. And the place is shaking. The whole place is rumbling. And the lights get brighter and everything's moving. And then all of a sudden you hear, as loud as you can hear it, the sound of a leopard going, screeching. And out of the bottom of the stage, he flies up in the air and lands. And he stands there and he's got his sunglasses on and he's motionless for 5 minutes.
No way.
It's a really, really long time. Maybe not 5. Let's say 3 at best. It's 3.
Okay.
And he sits there. And why is he doing that? Because the audience is losing their shit.
Yeah.
And he's letting them.
Yep.
He's watching. He's waiting. He just sat there with fireworks going off and the crowd losing their shit. Now, I don't know. I've seen a lot of very, very legendary artists. Paul McCartney, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, I've seen some artists that were just absolutely top of their game, best ever, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all that. But I've never seen anybody, not Elvis, not anybody, work an audience like he just understood exactly where they were and how to take them to that next level again. As much as they were losing their shit, he did something next that even made it even more intense,
And that's why he's the king of pop.
Yeah. And he just, there was one night in Romania, we were doing the show and the rocket belt had a malfunction. And so I needed 10 minutes. And so the guys I was working with on the crew said, go tell Michael we need 10 minutes. I'm like, what's he going to do? And they're like, I don't know, but we need 10 minutes. So I go down and I see Michael and he says, oh, no problem. He goes up on stage and he beatboxes and dances to no music for nearly 10 minutes. And the audience lost their minds. They'd never seen this before. And he just improvised a 10-minute beatboxed dance number.
He just always figured it out.
Just was never challenged in terms of what he could do. He just, no matter what the situation was, he'd been performing since, he was born practically. And
Right.
he just was also just phenomenally gifted. My son's a drummer, so I know about musicians. And my son was never, he said, when you talk about talent is an innate gift and 10 billion hours of practice. Somebody who's just got a very handy, like my son's very limb independent in his drumming. That's a gift, because I ain't got that gift, I'll tell you.
I can't drum.
Yeah.
I
But
can do hand drum,
it was almost always easy for him, but he would practice 6 to 8 hours every day.
That's why.
That's why he's a professional drummer. That's why people, that's it. Yeah. We always joke about, people will say, you've been very lucky. And I don't believe in luck per se. I've always said luck usually happens to me. Like my luckiest moments happen when I was working my ass off.
Yeah, same though. That's just how it works, man. Things work out when you're really working, but you're not expecting.
People do get, I tell people, I've won the lotto in many ways. My height and weight were just happened to be in demand at the time, but I was willing to get run over by a car. I took what was my innate lucky gift and then said, I'm willing to learn how to do the things it needs to do in order to make this work as a profession. A lot of people would have looked at that and said, no, I'm an actor. I'm not some crash test. I'm not some crash test dummy that you can just throw away. I took the opportunity. And then with that opportunity, I put a lot of hard work in to make sure that I could do what I needed to do as well as I could. I was not the best stuntman out there. To all the people that are stuntmen out there who've gone, you were a puss. Guilty as charged. But I had a great career and I got to do a lot of really cool things.
Yeah,
so and that's not being humble. That's just being honest. I know many other better stuntmen, but I got a lot of gigs because people would say, there are other guys who do this, but they're not as fun to work with. They don't have a good time. When I was on the set, I was the happiest little puppy dog with his brand new chew toy, man. Oh, nobody was happier than me. A lot of people worked more.
Man.
A lot of people worked harder. Nobody had as much fun.
You were loving what you do. That's what matters.
Absolutely. And if you're doing that, they say you never work another day in your life.
True.
To go back to the West thing, I'd been doing stunts for a while, and I decided I'm going to get out of doing stunts. I was just getting a little older. I think I was about 35, 36 years old, and had just had my first child. And I was a little bit worried about getting hurt and, not being able to put food on the table. And so I started doing websites with Tony Caesar, who was Wes's stunt coordinator. And he told me, he said, hey, I just built a website with Tony as a way to get stuntmen more work. It was like a online search when online search wasn't a thing.
Right.
And so he says, well, hey, Wes Craven's looking for a web developer. And I said, well, tell him I'll do it. He says, make sure he doesn't think you're an actor that's looking for a job, because he wants just a web developer, no shenanigans. No, don't ask him to get you a job on a show, which was very funny.
He knew that people wanted things from him.
Yeah. But I'd worked for Wes on 3 different movies. So I'm introduced to him and he says, hi, I'm Wes Craven. And I'm like, he doesn't remember me. Not even a little.
Just let it slide. Good.
I just let it go. He was like, you know what? He wants a web developer. He doesn't need to know I was a stuntman. So, so about that time I'd gotten to work with Wes, and he took me on, and I said, what do you want me to build? And he said, do what you think. And I said, really? He says, let your creative genius go crazy. And I had some ideas. And he says, I don't want blood dripping from the walls. I don't just do horror films. I do television. I do other films. So creepy, but not, I don't want to see dismemberment or any of that. So I came up with a few ideas, and the site took off. really, really quickly. And he went on Good Morning America when Scream came out and said, "Hey, I just got a new website. You guys should go to my website."
I think I've
But
seen
he
that
didn't,
interview.
well, he didn't tell me he was going to do that. And
Oh,
all of a sudden, we went from getting about 10,000 visits a day to 100,000 visits an hour.
oh my
And
God.
the hosting company went, "What the F, man? You got to warn us if you're going to do this." I didn't know he was going to do it. He never even said www.wescraven.com. He just said, "Go to my website." And so it went crazy. And then I got calls from people who said to me, "Hey, we want you to do our website." And I'm like, I'm not really a full-time web developer. And they're like, "We think you could be." I'm like, "Okay." And so People Magazine had it as one of their sites to see, which was their, Yelp review of websites. And so it changed my life for a second time. Wes Craven
That's
changed my life.
awesome. That's so
I went
cool.
from making $30K a year, schlepping customer service calls, to making 90 a year inside of 6 months, because Wes gave me that creative freedom to do whatever you want to do.
You were doing a call
And
center before that?
yeah,
I've done it. Oh,
Earthlink
so
Networks
hard.
back in the day.
Such a
Yeah,
pain in
so
the ass.
him giving me that opportunity to just do what I thought was right,
I love
what
it.
I thought would be fun. And I owe him so big for that, because it changed. Like I said, it's the second time in my life where Wes Craven absolutely revolutionized my life. He gave me my first job on that Disney show, and he gave me the job that I now have been doing for the last 25 years.
I love
So
it, man. That's
thanks, Wes.
wonderful.
Wherever you are, I don't know if you're up there, you're down there, who knows where you are, but wherever you are,
You might be
you
here
know,
with us right now, for all
he
you know.
might be. Maybe that's the
You know?
flicker in my monitor is
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And he was such a chill guy. Everybody asks, what was he really like? He was so funny. He was like the driest sense of humor, though. We joked about this the other day, Lee and I, about how Wes would tell you a joke today and you'd laugh at it a week from now. And the reason was, number one, you weren't sure if he was kidding. Number two, it was pretty damn clever. Did he mean to say it that way? And then you didn't want to piss him off, so you didn't laugh. You didn't laugh until you thought, is it safe to laugh? Okay, it's safe. But he was very, very funny. Very, the term I like to use is mercurial. When he was making a movie, he was having the time of his life. You spend a year getting a movie ready to be made, and then you get maybe 8 weeks, 9 weeks, to actually make that movie. And so you really want to enjoy the part that's the fun part. All that other getting money together and contracts and casting and all that stuff can be fun, but it's not nearly as fun as making the movie. And you could see it in Wes's face. You'll hardly ever see a picture of Wes in a back, behind the scenes thing where he doesn't have this little tiny sort of rambunctious kid look on his face.
Yeah, I know the face. I know exactly the face.
The most gory scenes, and Wes would be like,
yeah, like a giddy little 5-year-old.
Yeah, giddy little 5-year-old that just,
Love it.
Just emptied out his diaper onto the cat.
Yep.
He knows it was wrong, but he didn't. But he still enjoyed it, so he's not really sorry. He might say sorry to mom later, but he had a good time.
Mom might even think it's funny for a minute, but then realize it's wrong.
Well, and he found an audience that also enjoyed it. And so you think about, you want to do something that you love, but what if the thing that you love is something everybody else loves too? How good is that? And that's where he really found it. He was a teacher before he was a filmmaker.
Professor, right?
Yeah, and he went. He would go into New York, and he'd say, "I want to be a filmmaker. I'll do anything." And so he was the guy that would carry tapes back and forth, or film back and forth to the lab, and he got the guy in the lab to teach him how to do a few things. And
did they have him make a porn, or is that not true?
What's that?
Didn't they have him make a porn under a different name, or is that not true?
Not that I've known.
Okay,
possible.
So that's false.
Could be. But I mean, like I said, good. I know that the first movie that he talked about doing with me was The Hills Have Eyes, I think.
Yeah, that one's fucked up.
Yeah.
That was
and the deal with it was a local local theater owner came to him and said, "Hey, you like movies? You like to make movies, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I've got like 50 grand, something, unreasonable," and said, "I want you to make a movie, and we'll show it just at my movie theaters." I guess he had 5 or 6 theaters and a couple of drive-ins. So he said, make a movie. And so Wes wrote something, and I believe if it was either The Hills Have Eyes or what was the other one?
Left.
Last House, yeah. And
that was also really fucked up. I can't watch
the
that
thing
movie.
is, though, Last House on the Left is based on an opera.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And that which just tells you the cerebral nature of Wes Craven. He took what was this film about these kids go off, and in the original opera, the kids were going off to, I think, off to school or something, and they are captured and killed, and the parents of the kids go back and take their revenge on the homeowner in a way that's far more gruesome than even their own kids were killed. And so Wes was like, that'd make a good slasher.
Yeah, it does.
And that's what he did. Yep. So, the cerebral nature of borrowing not just a piece of classic literature, but an opera of all things was and he said these themes of these old, operas are just as relevant now. The idea of fear for your children, revenge, especially revenge on someone who's hurt your child. I mean, is there any greater, misery of having a child be hurt and then that person not being punished, and not being punished the way you want to punish him, So, a very
all of the Scream movies up until 4, the plot was literally revenge.
Yeah,
it's all about revenge. I never even thought about it. I just, while you're saying that, I'm counting my fingers, and I'm like, yeah, they're all about revenge.
Yeah, one way or another. I mean, Freddy's all about revenge.
Oh yeah, he is too.
Yep. The parents burned him after he apparently molested a few.
Was that something that the remake brought along, or was that the original idea? Robert Englund says it wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe the original idea behind Freddy was that he was a child molester, that he could not be punished because of some technicality. Parents took the matter into their own hands.
And they burned him alive.
And so he came back to come get him.
That might be the only good thing about the remake, is that scene where they burn him alive. They show it. That was cool. I like that.
Yeah.
But other than that remake was trash.
Yeah, I watched some scenes from it just for comparison's sake.
Bad.
And I don't know.
It's
sometimes
that original
sometimes
movie,
there's movies that don't need to be remade.
That was one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies I've seen lately. It's like, I'm sorry.
They remade Black Christmas twice.
Yeah. And both were, I don't know. I mean, a great opening scene, and then why are we here? There's a lot of films I look at, and I can understand why they'll carry a franchise to the end. I think when we were doing Nightmare 6, we called it Nightmare 6, The Final Beginning. We were just sure
Friday the 13th,
even though Freddy's dead, the final nightmare, it's all come out to this. They're gonna bring him back, and then Wes did it, of all people.
Wes did it, yeah.
Although he says it was a new nightmare, it was not a sequel. It was a sequel to the first one, not to any of the others.
And it's a prelude to Scream, because it takes place in the real world, where Wes Craven plays himself and Robert Englund plays himself.
Yeah.
And Heather Langenkamp plays herself. I love it.
So that was his, he was really wanting to do something new, and that's when New Nightmare. And I think he was never, I mean, I don't know, this is just my conversation. He never seemed like, that was as good as I wanted it to be. And when Scream came along, it's like, now we're talking. Now let's take horror films and start over. Let's just take everything
all time, man. Seriously,
can it and start over. Yeah,
Scream is my number one movie.
And Lee being in that one makes it just a little more special as a friend. It's like, you rat bastard, you lucky rat bastard.
Yeah, right.
And Yeah, and two. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lee was also Jurassic Park, Lost
The
World,
Lost
and
World.
a
Well,
lot of
you
other
both got
great.
to work with Spielberg, so you got that.
Yeah, we
You
both
don't
have a
have to
Spielberg.
argue over
He
that
got,
one.
but he was on Spielberg for a month. I was on
You
for a
didn't tell
couple
me
of
that.
days.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna grill him about that after this.
He all but missed my wedding. He flew back from Kauai for one night, be my best man, and then fly back out.
Shit. Hey, he did better than what my dad did. My dad bailed on his brother's wedding to go to Woodstock, but it was Woodstock, so.
But at the time that nobody knew it was going to be Woodstock. They just knew it was going to be a
Well,
big
he
show.
just saw all the bands. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to this. I have to go to this. I'm sorry.
My son's drum teacher was Janis Joplin's drummer at Woodstock.
That's fucking awesome.
And he's told me so many amazing stories about how, they're flying in and Janis is like, I thought we were talking like 100,000 people. This is ridiculous. I can't relate to 100,000 people. It's like, It's 500,000 people, but who's counting? And they just told her, if you can relate to the one, you can relate to the all. And so she got out there and she did what she does. And I think she did okay.
Yeah, I think they all did okay. Well, I think they're
considering
all
what they. Yeah, I mean, who could imagine? He said
when we got in, he thought Jimi Hendrix was speaking to him, saying, "We meet again."
Yeah, well, he flew in.
He's in the front row.
Maury said he flew in to do it, and he's in the airplane, in the helicopter with Janis, and they're flying in. He says, up until that moment, they thought it's just another gig, man. It's just another big. It's the biggest show ever, but it's just a gig. Don't get yourself all rattled about this. He said it was like a year later when Woodstock became Woodstock, and all of a sudden the film came out, and it was like, oh, this was the greatest moment in rock and roll. He said at the time it was just a sloppy, messy, wasted bunch of kids.
No one could get any water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the rain was horrible.
Don't take the brown acid.
Yeah. We talk about, my brother went to the next when he said everybody was old. He said, don't take the brown antacid. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the bass player gets tackled and breaks his arm, knocks some teeth out. I spoke to him at a show once.
That's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah, it is. Well, they're in the Hall of Fame, and I actually think they deserve it. I've seen Green Day 5 times. They put on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to see them, seriously.
Absolutely. I go to a lot of shows.
I almost got called up on stage once. The bass player, the same one who got tackled, he was like, "You could play." And the lead guitarist, Jason White, he's like, "You could play." They didn't call me up. It was fine. But damn it. They spoke to me. That was pretty cool.
Well, what other questions? Any other questions here we haven't answered that we got any burning questions from
We have one here, but I'm not sure what he meant.
Throw it
out.
Was
Universal the most elaborate set you worked on?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. Yes, but not Hook. The other biggest sets, when we did Newsies, Newsies. The Disney movie, Christian Bale, they dressed like 2 solid blocks of New York town, which had been just recently rebuilt. They'd had a fire, and they rebuilt it from scratch. And I walk onto this set, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's like walking into turn of the century New York. It was everything. They had food vendors actually cooking food. Everything was as real as you could imagine it. And I'm sitting there going, this is so cool. And then I hear playback and the music starts. I'm like, no way. And they're like, what? I said, this is a musical. And they said, oh, they didn't tell you it was a musical? I'm like, no. And they said, all your stunts are going to be done to music. I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. And so we get to do, when you watch movies when you're a little kid and you want to be a movie star.
Yeah.
You watch these old 40s movies and everybody comes on the set and then somebody goes to a big megaphone, says playback, and the music starts and then the dancers do their shit and it all goes. You knew it was fake in the movies, that you saw it. And then you show up and son of a bitch, exactly what I had just talked about. It was as close to that as it could possibly be. And I was like, that is a dream come true again. And then the other one was Predator 2.
Okay.
We were there was a bunch of different sets, all actually in the same soundstage. As you walk through the door, you see a little plaque on the ground that says Wizard of Oz was filmed in this room. You're like, ooh, that's a good one. That's history right there. And in this thing, we had the subway scene, but there was no actual active subway. Subways were not built in Los Angeles yet, and we were going to go to San Francisco, and then it got to be too expensive, so they said we'll just shoot it as a still, and so we started shooting it, and it was this huge set, and so we did that, and then next to it was the Predator's spaceship, which was very, very cool. As you've seen in the movie, if you ever see Predator 2, you see a xenomorph, from Aliens. You see one of their skulls in there, which means he kicked alien ass before he came to Los Angeles. So that was fun. And it was pretty full size. Kevin Peter Hall was 7'6". I just kept going.
I'm so sorry.
Totally okay. I'm answering Brandon's question. So we were talking about doing biggest set, and biggest set for me, other than that, was Predator 2. The alien ship was massive because it had to be. You're talking Kevin Peter Hall, 7'6", and and the suit, and a whole bunch of them. And so you had this massive suit. You had all these guys in full Predator suits and all that. And I remember walking through there, seeing the xenomorph from Aliens on the trophy wall, and I'm like, "Are you guys going to show that?" And they said it's an off. They just go by it very fast. So when you see it, yeah, it's Alien versus Predator.
They
years
previewed
before.
Alien versus Predator all those years before Alien versus Predator.
If you, like I say, they're scanning the wall, and you see Jerry's skull and spine, and you see all these other things. But as they pan by, you see a big xenomorph in there, which is very funny. At the time, it was just kind of a throwaway gag. I don't think the comic book for Alien versus Predator had even been written. So I mean, I know the idea was
why
out there.
do you have to call me, you asshole? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go follow Chili the Bad Man. Go listen to his music. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No. So anyway, so yeah, there was a lot of fun with that too.
That's awesome.
Just being in the same room where they filmed, Wizard of Oz was kind of trippy. We got to film on the set of Psycho, the actual Psycho house. That was pretty sweet. You see these places, and if you're a film fan, which you are, you see these places and you go, this is part of people's mindset. This is part of people's souls. These movies that scared them and entertained them, these places are like, it's like watching, going to Philadelphia and being in the room where they, signed the Declaration of Independence. These are historic locations that, that mean something. And when I think that the difference for me was, at the time I was aware, I grew up very poor. And so when I go to these places, I'm like, I'm never going to be here again. I'm going to soak this in like a sponge. I am so lucky to be here. This is so above my pay grade. Dude, this is going to be the best.
That's
and
so
so
cool.
I would just do everything I could to enjoy every second, because, I didn't imagine this could be my last show. I don't know. So let's enjoy it for what it was worth.
I love that. That's a great mind. Well, that's why you're having so much fun also. You didn't just love it. You're like, you know what? This could be the last one. Let's just live it up.
And I have to say, this ability to do these conventions now is, I know some guys look down on the conventions and they say, oh, it's a bunch of old has-beens trotting out their glory days. Like, yeah. I tell the same stories to my wife and kids. They're so sick of it.
Oh, I know.
They can't listen to my stories
anymore.
anymore.
Music stuff, so I get it.
Yeah,
I'm dealing with it too.
So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, Nightmare on Elm Street was my favorite of those, and I really just admired your work. It's like, thank you.
Don't the LA bus tours stop by Nancy's house?
Yeah, they do that, and they stop by in Pasadena. In fact,
Halloween.
The Halloween house is there, and they're having this thing, Halloween 45, where they're doing bus tours, and I got to tour the house a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
There's a house right behind it that's like a horror art museum.
That movie's 45 years old.
Yeah.
Holy
45.
shit. That's great, man.
It's
the best one.
It's true. So you see those things and you go, You know, when somebody, I used to kind of downplay my part in Predator, and somebody said, "You are part of the Predator franchise. You are part of the Predator story." And I never thought of it that way. You know, I had
Yeah.
my scene. I got killed. I was made into a trophy, so I got that little thing in my storyline. But I'm in the comic book. How cool is that?
Yeah, right. It's like, dude, I'm in a
Movies last
comic
only
book.
so
I mean,
long.
I can't imagine that. That's so cool.
Comic books, man. Those are. I even said to somebody, "There's something about being in a movie that's very cool. There's something about being in a comic book that is immortal."
That's
You know,
awesome.
because
That's
I
so
remember being a kid reading comic books, and the art is so amazing, and the stories are so outlandish and cool and fun.
Mhm.
So the the ability to have somebody come up to me and be excited and passionate about talking to me about it, when I'm as excited and passionate about, you know, talking to them. And so I like doing these things. I love meeting the people, and I love telling the stories, because these people are passionate about this to a level that, I mean, you know, you do Star Trek stuff, and Star Trek fans are hardcore, but
very voracious. Yeah.
nothing like horror fans. Horror
No.
fans go out every weekend, cosplay, go to a pop-up.
Scream fans are even a different story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lee calls them the Scream Nation, because it's
I
like
know.
its
I love it.
own subset, you
I know
know.
it is. It
And
literally is.
there's the same thing is true of Nightmare. Um, Same thing is true of Lost Boys. You know, there are people who just,
Yes.
those movies are part of their soul, you know. And so being in those movies and being able to tell them a fun story that they might not know. And the fun part of it is because I'll tell somebody a story and they'll go, "I watched that movie. I never noticed that." And you know, I mean, I know that
The
the next
dick
time they
thing
watch it,
from
they're gonna
Nightmare
watch it.
3.
Yeah, they're gonna watch this in a room full of friends, and they go, "I talked to that guy, and he told me this." And
Dick Snake.
it's undisputed new information.
Yeah, I
A
love it.
movie we've all seen, you know, 10, 15, 20 times, but now sitting around watching it with your friends, you get to be the guy that says, "I talked to Bill Perry about that, and he was the guy that would, you know, that thing's chasing him, is being pulled by a Volkswagen engine on a stand, and if it hits him, that dude's dead." So when he's running, he's not. There's no faking how afraid that,
He's
you know,
running
that
for his
was.
fucking life.
He's running for his life, just like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when they know that, they're so tickled. You know, they're so charmed by it, and they're like, "Oh, dude, thank you for telling me that story." You know, and they make like telling him that story was some kind of work for me. You know, it's part of the whole signing thing, and you know, I love signing
Yeah.
the autographs and all that stuff. It's all cool, but it's the talking to them and having that moment. Like, so, you know, what's your favorite, you know, movie that I've done? And they're like, "Oh, you know, it's Nightmare 3." And I'm like, "Well, you know, what character would you say, you know, was your favorite?" And you tell them, and you ask them these questions, and they're so surprised that you're as big a fan as they are.
Right.
You know, it's
They're
like,
like
no,
shocked
no,
you
man, dude, I
know.
love talking horror stuff. I could do this all day long. I do, you know, and to be able to do it at a convention with people who are so into it, it's like finding your best friends ever that you've never met, because
I
you
love it.
all love the same thing in this terribly gruesome way, and you get to go to these conventions and you let your flag fly, man. Hey, I like to dress up like Freddy Krueger. I don't give a shit who thinks that's stupid or lame. It's what
I
I
went to
do.
Comic-Con in Boston in 2010 dressed up as Michael Myers.
And you probably weren't the only one.
I know, I totally was. I really was.
I'm wondering if I have it here. I was going to show you something really kind of cool. Hang on one moment, please.
No worries. Can you still hear me?
I still can.
Did you ever play Mortal Kombat?
You know, I was not a gamer as a kid. When I was a kid, most of the games I was into were like games you would get that you would only play at an arcade.
Okay.
And so when home
That is the
gaming,
original Mortal Kombat. Totally.
when home gaming came along, by that time I had a job, and I
Okay.
just didn't have the
That's fair.
time. But the
That's
thing
fair.
I wanted to show you, talk about your cosplay. So,
Oh, that's cool.
so this is made by the guy that makes them for Robert Englund.
Oh, he made it for the movies?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he made them for the movie, but he, like, when Robert Englund wants to give one away to somebody as a special gift, because they're
Yeah.
not cheap. He
No,
goes
they
to
don't.
this guy. His name's Anders Ericsson, and he said to me, "So which one do you want?" I said, "The Freddy one." He goes, "No, 3, 4, or 6." And I said, "Is there a difference?" And he looked at me like I just grew antlers, and I'm like, I don't know the difference." And he's like, "Oh, dude, it's huge." And he went into the detail, and I said, "Well, if
Yeah.
you're going to give me one, then let's go 3." So this is my replica. Um, it's about as close as it can be, because Robert would give him the gloves from 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and then Anders would study them, and then he would take pictures, meticulous pictures, and every weld and every bend and every tarnished point, and everything is as close as anyone could.
I love it. That's
And
so
so he
cool.
made this for me, and I'm not a cosplay person, but I love having this at the shows, because I'll say, "So what do you want to do? You want to kill me, or you want me to kill you?" And they're like, "You'd let me wear the glove?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, oh, and all of a sudden it's so worth it. They're so
Love
excited. They're having so much fun. And it's like, now I get it, because, the Freddy glove is pretty freaking cool.
it is. It's
It is
scary
cool.
too.
And it's very freaking scary. And this, I can't take this into cons as a cosplay thing, because these blades are real.
Yeah,
That's,
right.
we can, let's see, not sharp per se, but
Yeah.
pointy and very heavy. So
Like the
I
buck
bring it into
120
shows,
they
and
used for the knife and Scream. That thing can cut through paper just from a.
yeah,
Why I
I mean,
don't have one. They're too strong.
yeah, and you can't take them anywhere. Nobody will let you
No,
use it,
you
because
can't. They're
it's
illegal to
basically,
carry.
yeah, it's a buck 120 they call it,
Yeah,
and
buck 120 or the
Lee had
119
one.
special. They used both.
Lee
See,
had
I'm one of
one
those
made.
weirdos that knows this about
Yeah.
Scream. All
Oh
the
yeah.
masks, fantastic faces, fearsome faces,
Yeah.
as seen in Scream, Scream 4. I know them all.
Oh, it's funny. I don't know if Lee told you this story. When Lee has a Scream 2 mask, and he put it up on, took some pictures of it, and somebody wrote to him and said, "That's not a Scream 2 mask."
He did tell me about this. He's like, no, I was there.
I was fucking there. Who are you to tell me I didn't have? They're like, no, because that's a dimple chin, blah 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 blah. And fortunately for Lee, the universe corrected itself, because people came to his defense and said, "No, that was in 1997. In 1997, the Fun World people had started their next, the next manufacturing process for the ones that they were going to use in 97, and that was, this was a box without the hang tags or anything, so those would have been there, but they would have been the only ones in America at the time, and they had a whole,
So he had the first of their kind. What he has is worth so much more money than the other fearsome faces that were used in the movie.
Well, then I'm going to tell you the stupidest thing ever.
Uh-huh.
So Wes Craven says to me, "Hey, Bill, go down to, there's a costume shop right across the street from this place called Patty's that we used to go to." He says, "And get a Scream mask." I said, "Okay." He said, "I want you to take some pictures of it for the site." Deal. So I pick this one up, and I bring it home, and I take my pictures, and it's just a mask, So I put it out on the porch during Halloween, and it gets rained on, and all this stuff. So I'm talking to Tony Caesar one day, and he said, "Do you have a Scream mask?" I said, "Yeah." And I showed it to him. He goes, "Jesus, where did you get this?" And I said, "Across the street from Patty's." And he says, "Do you know this was film used?" And I said, "What?" And he said, the eyes, the gauze that's covering the eyes has been replaced. And it's been replaced because the stuntmen needed to be able to see. And so if they were running around through the dark, they didn't have hardly anything stopping them. Whereas the actual mask that, they would use for camera would be very dark, so you couldn't tell who it was. So I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Dude, this is really cool. You have one that was used by the stunt team." And I said, "Would you sign a affidavit to that?" He goes, "Yeah." And so we did. So a year or two goes by. Now I bought this thing for $12. So some guy says, "I will give you $300 for that."
That's what I'm saying.
$300? You're out of your mind. Of course.
A lot of money, man.
That mask would be worth about 10 grand right now.
Oh, you
because
should have waited.
Henry Winkler sold his for 25,000.
Of course he did. Of
At
course
the
he
time,
did.
who knew it was going to be such a big movie? Not this guy.
Nobody who made the movie did. Even Nev, Skeet, Jamie, they all made a joke. Oh, do you think they're gonna sell a Halloween costume?
Yeah, and now they do. So yeah,
And
so
then-
I sold. And if you're out there, the guy that bought it from me, you suck. You knew what it was worth, and you didn't tell me. Now that's not true. He's a good guy, but I sold it very, very cheaply and very.
You
very,
thought you were getting the deal.
Oh, I thought I was raping the guy. I thought I felt like a
Yeah.
schmuck.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, when I was 14, I borrowed a Randy Death Scene mask from a friend of mine, and I knew how much it was worth, and he wanted it back like 4 months later, but I did try to sell it stupidly. And if I still had that mask, it'd be like 800 to $1,000.
Let's see, what did he just write? That's so neat, but makes total sense. Okay.
Yeah, he did say that.
Popping the popcorn. Hello, popping the popcorn.
That's Katie. She's a good friend. She's also a content
All right,
creator.
just-
I've
just
been on her
gonna
podcast
See if there's
too.
anybody else here whose questions I love. Other unintended Easter eggs. Any unintended Easter eggs? Yeah, the only I mean, I guess I don't know if it was an unintended one, but the predator, the xenomorph skull. That's probably the closest thing to a Easter egg that's in there. I mean, they put it there. They knew people were going to see it. And they might have lingered on it a little too long to be an Easter egg, but it's there and it is fun to watch. And I see it and I go, huh.
The reason why I brought up Mortal Kombat is because in the 10th game for DLC downloadable content you can buy, you can get the Xenomorph and the Predator, and you can play with two people, Alien versus Predator. It's fucking awesome. In the jungle.
The thing that I've been looking for, and I'm sure somebody out there has it, there is a Nightmare on Elm Street 3 video game.
Really? Dream Warrior is the game.
Dream Warrior is the video game. And the reason I want it is if you ever see a picture of Ira and I was a pretty good double for Ira. In fact, he posted something yesterday. He said, it's like looking in a mirror. And I said, yeah, there's just one really good looking guy in that picture. It's up to you who it was. But it does look like me. And I thought, well, I want to see what I look like in if they have the sequence of the wheelchair, then that's me. And I want to know what I look like on video. I want to see myself in a video game. That's almost, it's not quite as good as a comic book, but it's damn close. I would love to see myself in a video game somewhere. I don't know if there's a Predator 2 video game. If there is, I would be in that, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's that kind of stuff where you look back on it and you go, you can call me an old has-been if you want to. I don't give a shit. I had fun. And if other people want to talk about the fun stuff I got to do, I'm all ears. And
you also have great stories that are inspiring generations to come just by coming onto podcasts like this.
Thank you for that. But it is fun to talk about, obviously. And when you have somebody that doesn't know this stuff and it's fun for them, then it's fun for me too. And that's the whole point of the conventions and all that other stuff, as far as I'm concerned, is to give somebody a chance. Like people have said to me, I always wanted to be a stuntman, and I don't tell them the misery that was sometimes involved, because I don't want to destroy their vision of it.
Yeah, you don't kill it for them.
Yeah, I don't want to kill it for them. But it wasn't something that just anybody could do at the time. It did require a great deal of dedication to try to make a living at it, and that was really the biggest challenge. It was harder than doing the stunts, was getting the work. But when people want to talk about that stuff, it reminds me, it's like going to Disneyland with a kid. You get to see it through their eyes again. And to you, it's cardboard and, painted wood and stuffed animals, but to them, this is all very, very real,
Right.
And so when
which
somebody
could go either way,
Yeah.
Some of these Scream fans are fucking weird.
Well, it's funny. That was one of the things I had said to Wes. There was a time, this is another kind of crazy story, not bad, but kind of crazy. Working with Wes, a guy wrote to me and said, hey, I want to talk to Wes. And I said, if you have a message, I can get it to him. He said, tell him I'm going to kill him. And I said, dude, don't joke like that. He says, I'm going to gut him like a fish. I said, I know that's from the film. Don't fuck around. This is not funny. You don't threaten, people like this.
Yeah.
And he said, And he for weeks, he just kept sending these lines from the film. And I said, dude, if you do this, I got to call the police.
Yeah,
He's like,
I
fuck
would.
you. So I did, because I had to. FBI got involved. Some 15-year-old dumbass got a call from the FBI who basically made his life a living hell, saying, why are you threatening this man? I'm just a kid. I was just kidding. It's like, we've seen the transcripts. You were asked multiple times, not to do this. And it's not funny. And then he wrote me back, you asshole. I'm like, you know what? 99.9999% of the people that love horror movies just love horror movies.
Yeah.
But there can be, as we've heard and seen in the news from here and there, sometimes you do have crazy people. And what am I, a psychologist?
Dream Killers. There's a whole 2-hour thing about it. It's really sad. They were obsessed with the movie and they killed their friend that was a girl because they were jealous of her or something. It was stupid.
Yeah, whatever it was. And
they literally took the plot of Scream 2. I'm going to blame the movies. And blamed the movies.
And so that's what, so this kid was like, you ruined my life. My parents are so pissed. Another stew line, as it turned out. Just saying.
Totally improvised.
Totally improvised.
So good.
Yeah, so good. So, so most of the people that are at these things are just the kindest, most gentle, loving, funny.
Yeah. Like Wes.
They're wonderful folks. But there are those weirdos and stuff like that. And that's scary. But those people will be just as nuts about Star Trek or the Care Bears or
Star Wars.
Star Wars. I mean, if somebody's a freak and they if they've got, serious mental illness, it's going to manifest itself somewhere. And I don't think horror movies make it any better or any worse.
At this point, though, I think it's excuses. We're all fucking crazy. We're humans. We went from once just killing each other in the street to watching people be killed in like coliseums to where we are now. I mean, there are people who do crazy shit, but people like us, we're proving that society has evolved. Humanity has evolved.
Well, and and there's a certain art form to it, although it's like any other art. It's controversial. People say, why would you want to watch somebody get killed? It's like, you're missing the point. Now, there are people who love a good decapitation.
That's why I like horror movies.
There are plenty of people out there who just love a good decapitation. And, that's a little disturbing if that's something that you like. Yeah. Don't hurt once they start hurting animals, call the police.
This is why I play video games. You let all that shit out in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Play video games, but no,
one of the only games I ever played online all the time was Doom.
Doom, yes.
And I would be in God mode where I could just go without dying. And my wife said, but there's no challenge to it. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you always win. I said, I just want to blow shit up, honey.
Yeah, it makes you feel better.
I just spent an hour and a half on the 405 freeway from 4 o'clock until 5:30. I need to blow some shit up.
Yep. Yeah, no.
I don't want to hurt anybody.
And shoot like 10 people, and then I feel better. It's fucked.
I just need a little sort of release of tension by blowing shit up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hurt anybody. Really.
No, not in real life. Games are great.
Let's see. What does that say? Had film background, but not tech. What's that?
From Stunts.
Something from Stunts. So that is so neat. Yeah. I was an actor, and I think a pretty good one. But at the time, they said, "How tall are you?" I said, "I'm 5'6". They go, "You're way too short." And I thought, well, Michael J. Fox is 5'4". He's shorter than I am. Tom Cruise is only an inch, maybe half an inch taller than me.
They make him look so tall.
But the thing is, they wanted Tom Cruise. They wanted who they wanted, and I was not the one they wanted. And so when I started doing stunts, I got the work because of who I was.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
So it wasn't the channel that I had imagined as a kid, but in many ways it was better, some ways not. But hey, man, who gets to have half their dream?
No, not many people.
Yeah, I got to travel the world. I got to meet some of the nicest, most creative people you'd ever want to meet. Fame aside, they were just
You were on
great.
tour with Michael Jackson. I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, I got to
Say the
see that. I got to watch that show about 30 times from less than 5 feet away.
Did it ever get old?
Never.
I didn't
I
think
would
it
be
would.
backstage every night. I mean, if I wasn't in front of the stage watching the show from in front, I was backstage, pull up a chair, and just watch. Just watch.
His music is still that good.
Yeah, and his band was crazy cool, good.
Yeah.
Jennifer Batten, if you're a guitar player, Jennifer Batten is the shit from beyond. Still better than almost any guitarist I know, and a really cool person to hang out with. You know, really chill.
Right.
Great band, great dancers. Everybody was super, super talented, super dedicated to what they were doing to make that show the best they could. And you go out in front of 100,000 people 3 nights a week. You know, somebody had said to me, doesn't that freak you out? I'm like, I'm more freaked out in front of 2 people. 2 people will remember what a dick I am. 100,000 people probably won't remember me.
They're just going to have fun.
They're just going to have a good
And
time.
most of them are probably drunk if they're at a concert.
Or high.
I'm just saying.
For whatever reason, yeah. And so for me, I love big audiences. I love a crowd. You know, that's why you get into movies and acting and music and all this stuff. I mean, well, not everybody, but you want that applause. You want that appreciation. You want to create and then have somebody go, wow, that made a difference to me. That changed. You know, I love that song. I listen to that song 10 times a day. And you're like, awesome. That's what I created it for. You know, I wanted to give somebody something and I got the chance to share it. That's when I wrote my book, I started getting nice reviews and I was like, really? Because I didn't know, you know, I mean, I thought it was good, but I didn't know if anybody else would.
I have to read it now.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy.
I want to read it.
In fact, it's an audiobook. If you go, actually, I'm going to give a little quick plug here, if that's okay. Go to Chilling app in either Amazon or Apple or Android. There's an app called Chilling, and it is Spotify for scary stories. It's awesome. I'm not saying that they're not paying me a dime for doing this, but they took my book and they put it on there.
Isn't Jamie Kennedy a new partner with them too?
Who?
Jamie Kennedy?
Yeah, he's a part owner, I guess. He's a big investor.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they took my book and put it on there, and it's an audio book, so you can listen to it for free. So if you're awesome. Out there in YouTube land and you want to hear it, I think it's pretty good. You can judge for yourselves, but it won't cost you a penny.
Download the Chilling app.
Download the Chilling app, and I think it's a great app. It's well done. They just recently redid it, made 2.0.
What is your book called?
It's called By His Hand.
By His Hand by William R. Perry.
William R. Perry. It's about an hour is all, half hour each chapter. But I hope it scares the living piss out of you. I hope you write to me and say, I wet myself in stress. That's what I want to hear. But you know, that's that kind of thing. When people told me that they read my book and it scared them, that was awesome. I'm sorry. That was the greatest feeling ever. Like
vindication.
Really, because it wouldn't have scared them if they didn't care about the people.
No.
If they didn't care about the characters. If the writing didn't paint a picture that was very vivid in their mind, it wouldn't have scared them.
You did say you based the characters off of very real people in your life.
Actual people, not even very real. Actual real people.
Care about first and foremost. Therefore, the reader's going to care about them. It's genius.
That's very true. And my friends that read it are like, wait a minute. Am I Emerson? I'm like, sorry, man. He's like, you did me wrong. Wrong, man. Like, sorry. And he's like, did I die? I'm like, you'll find out in book 2. And he's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. He's like, God, that, like, I mean, when I wrote it, I had to stop for a few days because it was really painful to imagine some of the things that happened in the book. Very, very sad to the point of tears. I mean, I just couldn't do it. And friends that know me go, knowing how much of this book is real, it hits very hard. So I liked that. But when people say, I read it and it fucked me up, like, awesome, my work here is done.
Right. You
like,
did exactly what the whole, I mean, you learned
somebody told me
from Wes Craven.
Well,
he
and
literally made things to fuck people up. But
one of my favorite parts is people will ask at the end, so what was it? Was it demonic? Was he just crazy? What was it? And I say, what do you think? And they go, I know what I think, Bill. What did it do? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. Like, do you know? And I said, well, you know, of course I wrote it. Like, then tell me. I'm like, never going to do that.
Love it.
Not ever.
So cool.
And they're like, I'm disturbed and I'm unsettled. I'm like, well, welcome to horror.
Yeah, keep feeling that way. That was the
that's
point.
what that. Yeah, the more you tell me, the less chance you have of finding out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you want to hear something
I hope you know anybody that watches this gets a chance to listen to it. Not because I'm making big money or anything like that, just because I hope you like it. I hope you read it and go, he's right. That's freaking sad and disturbing. And geez, how did you write that about those people in your life? I mean, that's really hard. And so I enjoy that reaction, because that's what I wrote it, and part 2 is equally as mayhem filled. But it takes into account certain things that are going on in my life right this minute, things that are very sad and very scary. And
so you are writing a part 2.
What's that?
You are writing a part 2.
Oh yeah, I had to. Actually, Lee gave me the idea. I was dead determined that there was no part 2, and I said, I don't have an idea as good as that one. And then Lee said it, and I was like, son of a bitch.
Now you got to give him a co-writer credit.
No, never. I'll never admit it. Never admit. No, he actually gave me a nugget, which turned out to actually spur the actual idea.
Oh, okay.
The idea that he had.
All right.
He didn't give me the story.
Like a thank you in the foreword or something.
Yes. He gave me the what if.
Yeah.
Whenever you write, it's, well, what if this? You're like, ooh, okay, where does that go? And a lot of people have come to me since with ideas and said, hey, I'm not a writer and you are. I'm like, I've been a writer for like 15 minutes. But they're like, I've got an idea. Will you run with it? And they give me the idea. And by the time I finish, it has nothing to do with what they had in mind, but they like it. They're like, oh, that's not my story anymore. It's better than what I had in mind. And I'm like, well, that's good. But yeah, sometimes the act of creation, I mean, you're a musician. The act of creation is not conscious.
No.
I mean, you're working and you're consciously working.
It comes.
Yeah. And it comes when it comes, and it comes how it comes. When I'm writing, some of the times, some of what I'm writing, especially with this book series, is so very sad. And my friends are like, you're funny though. I mean, you're always the guy telling the most horrible, disgusting jokes. I think if you was being very funny, this book shows you are very dark. And I'm like, well, we all have different, elements to us. You know, I'm the world's worst guitar player. I know enough about music to know that I'm a guy with a lot of guitars and not a musician. My son is a musician. Music comes to him like breath,
Right.
And I wish I was that musician. I feel like I'm that actor. I sort of get the sense that if I really devoted my time to writing, that could be something. If I worked on it very, very hard, I could get that way. But that would be more work than I think I have life left to put in. But I admire that when somebody's, when you see Stevie Ray Vaughan or one of these guys
Legend.
play, and you just recognize this is spiritual. There's a lot of skill.
Stevie, man.
Yeah, shitloads of skill behind it, but very little conscious thought. A lot of effort, but very little thought.
It's almost like he went on stage, and if there is a higher power, it just took control, and that love spread through him, and it just happened. He had no control over it.
Yeah, and he would, when you see his guitars, they're completely mangled, and somebody would say, "Why would you treat a guitar like that?" He's like, "It's a musical instrument.
It's supposed to be beat up."
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play it like I play it, it's going to get some scars. And now they're selling scarred guitars, brand new guitars, all scarred up.
Yep. You want to hear something funny?
What's that?
I actually started music because it was the more affordable option. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I did television production in high school. I wanted to be in movies or make movies, be behind the camera in some way. So this has come full circle for me. Like when I was 14, I told Lee about this the other day. I used to watch Wes Craven's interviews just to help me get through the hard times. Well, 5 years ago when I moved to Florida, my mom died, cancer, stage 4 pancreatic. Wes Craven's interviews helped me get through that.
Yeah.
also passed of cancer. So it was really interesting what a
Yeah.
profound influence Wes Craven had on my
You know,
life. I cried when he died. I didn't even know the man.
yeah. There was a great video, and if you look around, you'll find them all over YouTube and Instagram with Michael Caine, another great actor, Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Michael Caine.
Yeah, Sir Michael, yeah, and Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Oh,
where they talk about just belief in what you believe you're capable of. And one of the ones I was watching with Anthony Hopkins said, it doesn't matter if you believe it. You're not always going to believe, but act like you believe. Act as if
fake
you
it
believe.
till you make it.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, literally take the actions that one would do if you did believe, and you'll be surprised. And I think I've felt that 100 times in my life, where it's like somebody'd say, you want to be in movies, man, it's never going to happen. You ought to do something else. Find something else to fall back on. Don't do this. And I just couldn't. And when my wife asked me to, she said, with my son wanting to be a professional drummer, she said, he's going to have to learn to do something else. And I said, wow, are you talking to the wrong guy? Dude, he's so much better a drummer than I ever was a stuntman or an actor. He lives and breathes and shits and sleeps drums. I don't know anybody better. And he's so incredibly motivated. There's just, I can't, I don't even want to discuss it anymore. I'm already
Our
tired
kids
of it.
are supposed to be the perpetual furthering of the generation, right?
Yeah.
So it only makes sense.
If you knew somebody who was so good at it, and why would you want to kill that? There was a great quote I saw the other day that said, if you're a bee, be a busy bee. Bees don't have time to talk to flies about why shit is better than honey.
Yeah, you're right.
I just love that. It's
that
like,
great.
What? Bees are always busy doing the thing that they do, and what comes from it is honey. Flies do a lot too, but their goal is shit in the end. And I find for myself, I've never told myself I couldn't do something. I've just told myself whether it was practical or not for what the market would bear.
That's realistic.
Don't be stupid. It's like not everybody gets to be an astronaut,
Not everyone gets to be an actor.
Not everybody gets, I mean, everybody gets to act, but that doesn't mean you get to do it in major feature films.
That's true.
I do theater down the street. It's a local thing, not because I'm looking for fame and fortune, but because I'm a pretty good actor and I love the challenge of a new role. I play my guitar still. I got arthritis pretty bad, but I still play guitar, not because I'm good at it, but because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't compare myself to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Why would I compare myself to who I think was the most gifted musician of his time? Why compare yourself to Anthony Hopkins? Why not compare yourself to yourself last week?
Actor, man.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Compare yourself to who you were last week. Are you better this week than you were last week? Well, that's awesome.
If you're not, why are you doing it?
Yeah. That means you need to get back to putting the time in,
right,
and put the effort in and put the passion in. And that's really where it goes to for me. And you talk about Wes's story. That is his story. Here's a guy who said, I'm giving up my safe teacher job and I'm going to move my family, who thinks I'm an absolute idiot, and I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to make movies. He didn't even go to film school. He didn't even do what everybody else did. He was like, I'm going to do it my way. I can get this done. I'm going to go through the back door. I'm going to find it.
And he understood pacing better than most directors. His movies are very well paced.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of guitar players who never took a lesson that are great guitar players.
John Carpenter, he just figured out how to play piano and wrote that song.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there that is a matter of not allowing yourself to feel like the limits that are there. I mean, you're always going to have limits, but don't let those limits be your own.
Right.
Don't let them be yourself holding yourself back. When we were doing stunts, there was a couple of times I thought I could get killed doing this.
Yeah, you guys put your lives on the line for what you do.
I mean, it's pretty rare that you actually put yourself on the line. I mean, some guys did it more often than others. I did it maybe half a dozen times, maybe 3 times in my whole career. Most of the time it was, you could break your leg. Yeah, you could bust an arm. Yeah, you could get lit on fire and that could burn you. But there was a crew, and a good stuntman is not a daredevil. Lee sent me this video today of this guy who's doing a fire burn while doing this massive motocross jump, but he has no landing area. He overshoots his ramp by about 30 yards, and he's off of the bike in midair, and he's 10 feet away from the bike. There is no way he's going to stick this landing. And I said to Lee, this is the perfect example of daredevil versus stuntman. The stuntman recognizes he has to do this shot 4 or 5 times potentially. A daredevil says, "Watch this," and he doesn't have the wherewithal to plan it out. He's letting his guts carry the day, where a stunt person would go, "I need to go home tonight, and I need to come back tomorrow if I want to make a living at this. So let's make sure we remove any and all risk that can be removed." And there's still going to be risk. You still could get hurt, but that's going to be in my ballpark. I would tell people, I have a fear of heights. Kind of surprising for a stunt guy, right? But I'm not afraid of heights as long as I own the safety. If it's my hand holding the rope, fine. I don't want somebody else to be holding my hand, because now I got to trust that guy, and I probably don't, because he may be a wonderful guy, but he could drop me. So if I'm going to do a stunt, I want to have full right of refusal, to do it the way that they say to do it. If I think there's a better way and it can still be filmed the way that they need to do it, I'm going to suggest that. And if they say, nope, you do it our way or you don't do it, sorry, man. It's been a great day.
Right.
I think so.
And it's not like a Jenna Ortega Wednesday Addams situation where she's literally trying to change the script. No, you're looking out for your own safety. That's completely different.
Yeah, I'm not patting myself on. I mean, there are people who would say, she made the film better, and that's that's certainly up for discussion.
Yeah, well,
I know my daughter loved that.
I was talking about earlier. I know you know that, but
yeah, and I know there's a lot of people. There's some things that she said and done that I don't agree with.
Thank you.
And that's fine. I don't have to. I don't have to. To enjoy her personally to enjoy her films.
I liked her in Scream 5, but that's it. Now she's overdone.
Yeah, she's gotten very famous.
Forcibly fed as the it girl. She's not the it girl. She's forced on us as the it girl. I don't want that. I'm sorry.
Sure. No, yeah, that person should be generated by the audience developing. Calling somebody the America's sweetheart. It's like, who says? Because I don't see that, and I don't know anyone else that does. If you're trying to force a person's persona on me, probably not going to buy it.
That's why I don't buy. I mean, I don't buy the Tom Hanks persona. I'm sorry. There's too many weird things about him that I'm like, oh,
I'll have
that's
to tell
weird.
you, if you get a chance, we'll connect you up with Alan Robinson, another good buddy of ours, also in Scream and Scream 2. And Alan worked with him for 9 years.
Okay.
And talked about him like salt of the earth, coolest guy, always
that's good
invested, always good things. Always invested.
It's either extremely bad or extremely good.
Yeah. And I have to take that. I'm sure there are plenty of people think I'm a dick. Probably people I'm related to.
Think I'm a dick, bro. Come on.
I'm saying, so opinions will vary. I like to take each person as I get them. There are plenty of actors. People ask me, do you have any dirt on any actors? And sure, but why?
No, I'm not. I didn't ask you to come here to do
that. No, you didn't. But I've had people ask, and it's like, I really enjoyed my career, and I enjoy what I do now. And I think the reason people like working with me is I come in with a great attitude of gratitude and just feeling like the happiest little guy to be there. And so if I sat around and thought about all the people who did me wrong or weren't very kind or weren't very nice people or weren't even very good at their jobs, then I lose that attitude that everybody enjoys, and I think that also affects me negatively. Then I walk around like feeling like somebody owes me something. Nobody owes me anything. I've won the lotto in 100 different ways, except for the actual super lotto, which was won in Los Angeles last night. So Guy won $1
I
billion.
still play even though I shouldn't. I know I'm never.
Somebody got, well, as they said, it's the tax on the stupid.
Yeah.
I don't think I paid my taxes this year.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
you can be happy with money and happy without, but the people that are happy without wonder where dinner's coming from.
That's true. Yeah.
Grow up
I
poor
could
and
go
then
either
tell me.
way. Sometimes I have money, sometimes I don't. I'm happy either way.
Sometimes
You
you
know?
spend it, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes I spend way too much of it. Jeez.
I just looked at the clock. Oh my God, we've been talking for 2 solid hours.
I was going
How
to
does
say,
this happen?
people wait hours in line to meet you at conventions, and you just gave me 2 hours and 19 minutes.
You did. You got in cheap.
Thank you.
But you know, and that said, I'm going to plug 2 more things before I let you go.
Perfectly fine
I'm
with
going to
me.
be I'm going to be at Atomic Monster Weekend in Arizona coming up in October, the 26th, no, 27, 28, 29. I would love to have people come out for that. I've never been to Arizona before, so if people have stuff that's got Nightmare and Predator and Lost Boys and all that stuff, always fun. Talk to them.
What was the date again?
October 27, 28, 29, Mesa, Arizona.
This year.
And then the very week before that in Marietta, Ohio, for those of you in the Midwest, something called the Marietta Monster Mash. Looks like it's going to be fun.
My friend Killjoy Jake might be there. I know he lives in
Ohio. These are both first-time conventions, so you know, it's going to be a lot of new going on. Both these guys are so devoted to a good time. I can't believe it won't be good. And then this weekend, or not this weekend, next weekend, I'm doing a pop-up thing called the San Bernardino Collectors Night Out. And that's Saturday in San Bernardino, California. Another fun one. A lot of Funko Pops and people who collect stuff. So people who collect are always so hardcore. People who just know every detail about everything, and they hand it to me, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I got nothing. But I'll sign it for you if you like. But I love doing that stuff, and I really hope to do a lot more of it. It is a nice little paycheck, nice retirement income for an old fart like me. But if people are out there and they want to say hi, I would love if somebody said, hey, you know, I saw you on the Insomniacs podcast, and I'd be like, oh, that's so cool. You know, so, you know, do come out. You know, if you see me at one of these things, you see Lee at one of these things, you see Alan or Brett Wagner, any of these guys that are my buddies, you know, we really do this because we love it. I know a lot of guys who just won't do it. They're like, I don't care about those people. It's like, those people are the reason you live in such a nice house. You might want to think about that.
Yeah,
those people,
like, show your gratitude.
yeah. Gratitude is such a big deal. You know, I look back on so many points in my life where things could have turned poorly, or even they did turn poorly, and then because they went poorly there, they went better elsewhere. You just don't know. You know, the way things work. So many things that I would have hoped and prayed for to go a certain way would have ruined everything that I have now. You know, and so I don't know if that's making the best of everything as I go forward, or it's just better off that I didn't get what I wanted. You know, when you're a little kid, you're like, I want ice cream for dinner. And then you try it and then you're sick, you know, and you're like, Mom, why didn't you tell me? I told you.
Still
like
happens
times.
To me now.
Yeah.
I eat ice
cream. I told you that 30 times. You just weren't listening. That's a lesson you never learned.
I love cheese. Destroys my stomach. I can't do it.
You know, so you learn from that and you find something better.
It's true. That's very true. Well, I think your great words of advice for the upcoming generation, of course, have been amazing. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure entirely. And like I said, if you ever, you know, you need somebody again, I'm going to hook you up with Alan. You're going to love Alan. Do. He's got at least 10 times as many films as I've done. And I'm not kidding. He's still working to this day. Cool. As a stunt coordinator, works with Hanks and Clint Eastwood and just legends. I mean, just legends that are, you know, legends to other legends. And you know, so many good people out there that really enjoy this kind of work and have really had some fun with it and love to tell their stories because it was fun and we are grateful. And it's a way to kind of share that with people that are passionate about it. And kind of, you know, I tell people I enjoy these things because I'm a fan too. You know, I lost my shit when I met Tim Curry, just like you would.
I would lose my shit if I met Tim Curry. Seriously. Yeah.
I worked with him. I worked on Home Alone 2 with him, and I totally.
I forgot he was in that.
I just about freaking drooled on myself, you know, just like I've watched Rocky Horror Picture Show 150, 200 times between my first year of high school and my last year of high school, every Saturday night, added, for years and years. And he's just like this hero. And there
Sorry,
he
Bill
was. And
Skarsgård. He's the only Pennywise. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
it's true. And he's a very sweet guy, very,
He was
very
supposed to
smart.
be the Joker in the Batman animated series before they got Mark Hamill. And
Yeah.
Mark Hamill blew it out of the freaking water. Whoa, Luke
Yeah,
Skywalker's the Joker is the
yeah.
best
You
one.
can't say they gave it to the wrong guy, or they gave it
They
to a lesser
didn't.
guy.
They did not. They gave it to the right guy.
Yeah. And you look at Tim Curry in Legend, where he's the devil.
Oh.
And oh my gosh, amazing performance, just staggeringly good. So yeah, so there are times where even we get out to the movies and or we go out to a convention and somebody says like, I'm going to be meeting Dee Wallace from The Howling and E.T. and
The mother, right?
the mom,
They
yeah,
reference her in
and Cujo
Scream in the video store.
and Cujo, one of my favorite Stephen King movies of all time.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm going to meet her, and if I don't shit myself, it'll be a miracle.
So you still geek out over this shit too?
Oh, incredibly. There's some people I do, some people I don't, but like there are a handful like legends. I met George Burns, who you probably might not have heard of. If you ever seen the movie Oh God, this guy was in vaudeville all the way through radio to the beginning of television.
Oh, he was there for the iconic things that changed.
80-year career.
Wow.
And was funny. My sense of humor was based on this guy when I was a kid. And I got to sit with him for like 2 hours and just hang, and him telling me stories. But as much as he told stories, he wanted to hear my stories because he was just that kind of guy, and it was like, if you didn't geek out on that, I don't know who you're going to geek out on.
Well, I'm
there's a
kind of
story
geeking out right now because when I was a kid, I never thought, oh, I'm watching Home Alone 2. I'm going to talk to the stunt coordinator for this movie in 20 years or whatever.
There's a story I told online to a guy I did a signing with about Bill Paxton. If you look it up, it's really a cool story about meeting a guy who I was, just blown away by, really, really good. And he was so kind to me. And I was sitting in his chair, and he comes up and he says, "Hey, is your name Bill?" Yeah. "Oh, you're in my chair." I'm like, "Oh, sorry, dude." And he's like, No. And I was dressed as this gang member, and he's like, "Why? What are you doing today?" And I said, "Oh, it's terrible. I'm just this gang member." And he's like, "Have you ever seen Terminator?" I said, "Of course. We all saw Terminator. Who didn't see Terminator, right?" And he says, "That was my first big film, and I was a gang member." And I said, "Oh, wow." He said, "That was the day my career took off. This is the day your career takes off. Don't let this day go too quickly. Enjoy
it. Energetic power for good.
Yeah, it's like, just do what relax, enjoy it. Your face is going to be 80 feet across on screens all over America and the world. And today's the day that begins. Don't let this day go. Don't let this day go fast. Enjoy it. Breathe it in. Do your best work today." And I just remember thinking, he doesn't owe me anything. He doesn't have to be nice to me. I'm just some schmuck sitting in his chair. But he stopped down to tell a guy who was clearly nervous and clearly, scared shitless of being his first real speaking role in a major budget film. And he took his time to make sure that I enjoyed it. Not just that I did well, but that I enjoyed it and that it was memorable and that I didn't just breeze through it and try to act cool like it was like it was just a normal day for me. He's like, "No, fuck, man, this is the best day of your life right now." And he was right. It was, and what a cool guy.
Movies aren't like this anymore. You hear about the movies. It's not the same, man.
Yeah. And so much of it has to do with, and I hate to say, just CGI. I don't want to make technology the villain, but you don't get big cast scenes, and it's a lot of films are very derivative. They try to work ultra quickly, which
reusing lines like that new Flash movie. "Oh, let's get nuts." Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. What made that iconic is the event of it in that first movie, not just reusing the line.
Yeah, rehashing it
Getting
is
annoying.
awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's those people like the Bill Paxtons and Drew Barrymore was also very nice. We worked on a movie with her other than Scream.
I've heard
Uh,
nothing but good things about her.
Seriously, couldn't be
Yeah.
sweeter. Been through all the same
Hell
shit that
and back.
Culkin went through and Corey went through, but
Yeah.
she came out the other end, and really managed to pull her life together and be the kindest. The
I just
highest
want to know how
compliment
the
I
hell did
give,
these kids get their drugs? How did
yeah,
they get their booze? There must have been a really irresponsible adult around them getting those things for them.
people who wanted to keep them busy working,
Yeah,
and they
keep them
knew that,
well, also keep them under some sort of fucking like control because booze
yeah,
will do that, drugs will do that. Yeah,
yeah.
easier
But
to control them.
the highest compliment I give is someone was kind,
Yeah,
because really all other good traits, to me, at least my opinion, flow from somebody being kind. Because if you're working with another actor, there's a great story Michael Caine tells about how he's supposed to walk through the door onto stage, and this actor had knocked a chair over, and the chair was blocking the door, so he couldn't come in. And so the actor's like, Michael, where the hell are you? He's like, well, you've got the door blocked. He's like, it happened. Use it. Use the difficulty. Let it be part of how you play your next line. It's going to make your line better. It's going to make the play better, because something that looks like it was accidental now seems it must have been planned. The actors were so completely in the moment, you know, and it's that sort of thing where that working with each other and that playing off of each other, and it's just like music. You got a great solo, well, you got to recognize that bass player and that drummer locked in and gave you that canvas, to play on.
yeah,
And
that's
that
why the bass
singer,
drums are so important. They are
yeah,
the
what I mean? Well,
bass.
the rhythm section or the singer, whoever it was, the
Mhm.
band that's with you gave you that opportunity to do your part, you know? And so when I look at all the people that I've worked with and I think about to the people that are really memorable, it's not the shitheads. It's the really super generous, kind souls that went out of their way to make sure, like Jennifer Garner from Alias, couldn't have been sweeter, came up to me and said, "Do I get to fight you today?" And
I've heard that about her too. You could just
oh
tell though,
God,
just
I
by looking
wish.
at her, she's so sweet.
So smoking hot. And she was
Hot
so
too, yeah.
nice to me. And
What was Ben Affleck thinking? Going
I
back
have
to
no clue.
divorcing her and going back to the other Jennifer? What?
I don't know where that happens. But the idea of it was she said to me, if there's anything that's going on, if you're uncomfortable, if anything goes wrong, anything you need, tell me. People listen to me because I'm the star or whatever. And she meant it. Christina Applegate we were working on Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Love that
Just
movie,
took
by
me
the way.
aside and she said, "Do you have?" We'd done our little scene, and she's like, "Do you want to have lunch together?" And I was like, she was super, super pretty, way too pretty for my ugliness, and she was just kind. And I had to leave. Actually, I'm like, no, I can't. But oh my God, what an amazing thing! The star of the show doesn't have to do any of this crap.
No,
They
they
don't have to
don't.
be nice, and you don't even expect them to be nice. But when they are, you're like,
Yeah.
that's what needs to happen. That's why they become stars. If you ask me, they're open, generous people who share their gifts with people because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And they're not there for the money or the fame. They're just artists who enjoy working with other artists, and they look at anybody, whether they're the stunt guy, the extra, the makeup guy. They look at all of them as being artisans here to create something, even if the movie isn't great. But that's what we're here to do. We're going to do the best we can with the materials we have in front of us. And it's those people that really are like that I think, you look at and go, the Gary Sinises, all these people that you just look at, all you hear is what wonderful people they are, because they are wonderful people. It's
Lieutenant
not
Dan.
Lieutenant Dan. Yeah. So all that stuff that when you hear those things, and I love it when it's true. I hate
Yeah.
it when it's not.
Right. Oh,
Because
my
you don't
Lyft
want to
driver
you don't
the
want to
other
meet a
day.
hero and find out somebody was a dick.
I got one for you. My Lyft driver the other day, he met Colin Farrell and he wanted to get an autograph for his mom because his mom's a huge fan. He's like, I don't sign autographs for people who are below me. So he's thinking to himself, what do you got, autographs from people, other celebrities? No one's going to want your fucking autograph, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Now
I tried to
think
get
differently of Colin Farrell.
I saw Mark McGuire, baseball player, in the year that he got the big record. And my son played for his local, same number. And so I grabbed a little slip of paper and I waited till he was finished talking to people. And I said, Mr. McGuire, hello, my name's Bill. My son's name is Jack. He plays for the Cardinals back in, Los Angeles, California. It would mean the world if you would just sign your name. Just say to Jack, Mark McGuire. He goes, I don't do that. And I said, oh. I said, I'm sorry if I caught you when you're busy. He goes, I'm not busy. I just don't do that. I'm not going to have, sign something and then you go sell it for $100 on eBay. I said,
what a dick.
I'm going to have you sign it to Jack. He's my kid on a little scrap of yellow paper. I said, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to be an asshole. He goes, you're the fucking asshole, and went all roid rage. And I was like, whatever. And I just turned and walked away. And I thought, that's the story I get to tell my son about his hero.
Good for you, though. Good for you for standing up for yourself and calling him that.
Well, it wasn't even for that. It was my freaking kid. You don't have to be cool. You don't have to be a jerk about it. I wasn't being mean. I was, because the thing is, never ask a celebrity of any level to sign something when they're eating. Never ask anybody when they're in the middle of a conversation. That guy may be trying to get laid tonight, and you're totally
cock blocking him.
Yeah, you're cruelly killing his vibe. So wait till they're done. Wait till they're finished. Wait till they're having a break. That's and then once they're done, for the most part, 99% of the people out there will be like, no problem. And I have had people come to me and say, can I get you to sign something? And I say, yeah. And they go, can I get you to sign a few more things? It's like, you're not asking me to sign 4 things because you're a fan of mine. You're asking me to sign 4 things because you're just going to go sell them on eBay. If I go to a show, people have to pay for this. And part of the reasoning is not because they're just collectors, because they may go out and sell it. And so it's paying me for the fact that you're just going to go sell it.
They're scalping you is what they're doing. They're
if it's something that's worth something, it feels weird to have to pay just for somebody's signature. I've always said, I don't look at it as paying for the signature. I look at it as a chance to meet people. Yeah. And so when I meet people, I try to make that experience as positive and upbeat. I want to tell them a story they've never heard before. I want to find out what they love about the movie. I want to take a picture with them so that we can, I want to give them my Instagram address and say, yeah, Webb's Craven, write me anytime. Let's talk.
Great handle, by the way. This episode.
Well, like, will you actually write? I'm like, what do I look like? I'm not, I just live in a house like everybody else, man. I'm a guy like you. I'm not some, mansion living guy. And I'm a fan like you are. I love when people write. It's great. I mean, I've got like 800 followers now, which isn't very much, but every time I get a new one, I'm like, joy, somebody else wants to talk, horror movies. Rock on.
Exactly. That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
All right, then it's time. It's almost time. We've been on.
My brain is deteriorating. William, this has been a pleasure.
Mine as well, man. Thanks so much.
You made this a positive experience for me. Seriously.
See that? See there? Yeah. And well, hopefully we'll see you folks out there in the world. If you go to a con and I'm there, please at least wave at me. Let me know I exist.
Support everyone, please. This has been the Dreaming Insomniacs, the podcast here with William R. Perry, stuntman, actor extraordinaire. You rock, man. Thank you. We got to have you on again soon. And once again, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.